I'm Francesca Page. President Barack Obama says Iraq will need additional assistance from the U.S. to push back on Islamic insurgency. The president did not specify what type of assistance he is willing to provide. But Obama says the White House has not ruled anything out. Iraq has been under attack since the last American forces withdrew in the late 2011. The violence escalated this week when an al-Qaeda-inspired group captured two key Sunni-dominated cities. Earlier today, President Obama spoke about the potential U.S. involvement in Iraq.
Now, Iraq needs additional support to break the momentum of extremist groups and bolster the capabilities of Iraqi security forces. We will not be sending U.S. troops back into combat in Iraq, but I have asked my national security team to prepare a range of other options that could help support Iraq security forces, and I'll be reviewing those options in the days ahead.
President Obama said he is weighing a range of options to end the violent Islamic insurgency in Iraq. President Obama appeared earlier today on the South Lawn of the White House to say that he will not send American troops back into Iraq. The president's statements came one day after he said Iraq will need American assistance to fight off the al-Qaeda rebel-backed fighters. The crisis in Iraq has worsened today as terrorists took more ground. ISIS militants continued their advance on Baghdad after seizing Iraq's second largest city. Nearly 500,000 civilians have been displaced since the fighting began. The terrorist organization linked to al-Qaeda has taken thousands more as captors in Tikrit. President Obama addressed the crisis in Iraq today, saying that while the administration's security team is investigating all options, there are no plans to send American troops into combat. U.S. Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl is back in the U.S. today. Right now, Bergdahl is recovering at the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. The former Army sergeant has faced controversy stemming from allegations that he deserted his unit while on duty. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said Bergdahl's health is his primary concern for now, and doctors say his recovery could take months.
All right, folks, welcome to the Friday edition of the Steve Malzberg Show, and we're going to kick it off with our friend John Fund, Newsmax contributor, national affairs columnist for National Review, and he joins us to discuss what's going on in Iraq and his brilliant, important new book, and I mean that sincerely, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. Then the Malzberg panel, terrorism expert and author Rich Miniter and retired Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force and military intelligence expert Rick Francona is back again today on the panel. Noah Rothman, now associate editor for HotAir.com, will tell us if President Obama's failure to deal with Syria is coming home to roost in Iraq. All that, you got Give Me Five and more on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show.
Ready? Fire away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
I do want to be clear, though. This is not solely or even primarily a military challenge. Over the past decade, American troops have made extraordinary sacrifices to give Iraqis an opportunity to claim their own future. Unfortunately, Iraqis' leaders have been unable to overcome too often the mistrust and sectarian differences that have long been simmering there. And that's created vulnerabilities within the Iraqi government as well as their security forces.
All right, folks, here we go. That was the president today making comments on the situation in Iraq. He said the U.S. will not be sending troops into Iraq. However, the USS George H.W. Bush is now moving into the area. Military action of some sort is possible. He said a lot of options remain on the table. And as you heard him say, he believes this is not a problem that could be solved militarily alone, that there has to be a coming together of various factions within Iraq. So it's going to be very interesting to see how far the terrorists proceed and what military action, if any, President Obama will order. We'll talk about that with John Fund. We have our expert panel coming up as well, so keep it here. right here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Also, in the race for House Majority Leader, since Eric Cantor has announced he's resigning that position come July 31st, or effective July 31st, in addition to Kevin McCarthy, who many believe is just another member of the House leadership and not acceptable to many Tea Partiers within the House. You now have Congressman Raul Labrador, who has thrown his hat into the ring. We'll talk about that later on with Michael Steele, the former head of the RNC. So we have a full show for you, as you might expect. Always a lot going on. Let's watch more from the president.
Over the last several days, we've seen significant gains made by ISIL, a terrorist organization that operates in both Iraq and in Syria. In the face of a terrorist offensive, Iraqi security forces have proven unable to defend a number of cities, which has allowed the terrorists to overrun a part of Iraq's territory. And this poses a danger to Iraq and its people. And given the nature of these terrorists, it could pose a threat eventually to American interests as well.
All right, folks, as promised now, we welcome in John Fund, Newsmax contributor, national affairs columnist for National Review Online, and the author of a really great new book that everyone must read, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. John, welcome, sir.
Thanks. My co-author, Hans von Spakowski, and I really got into this. This is the first full-length investigative treatment of what Eric Holder has been up to.
And you know how excited I've been in anticipation of this book. You and I have talked about it, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, let me ask you about the circumstances in Iraq.
Well, this is a very perilous situation, both for Iraq and for American interests. And this is not the right time to say, I told you so, but we shouldn't be surprised if some people say, I told you so. 3 years ago, Barack Obama decided to leave Iraq completely, leaving absolutely no American forces there. He failed to negotiate an agreement with the Iraqi government, which everyone expected he would, to leave a few thousand people there. Now, 2 years before that, he released the guy who's now heading this very successful rebellion against the Iraqi government and literally could turn this into Saigon 1975 with U.S. helicopters flying off of the embassy in panic.
Yeah, it is symbolically horrific. It's horrific for those who fought there and lost limbs and sacrifice, and for the families of those who perished fighting there, to see these al-Qaeda flags now being raised in city after city.
It's an astonishing turn of events. It just goes to show we can train foreign troops, we can equip foreign troops, we can tell foreign troops who the enemy is, but we can't make them fight. And apparently something like 30,000 Iraqi troops literally just abandoned their uniforms and weapons, and now those weapons are being used to drive towards Baghdad. The president, I hope that he take some action, because I don't think we can afford to have Iran have a much bigger strategic imprint in the region, and they would, regardless of whether or not the government actually fell or whether there was just a civil war. So it's yet again a complete failure of American foreign policy, and I have to say the costs of this war and this conflict continue to mount, and looking back in retrospect, obviously, we badly underestimated what was the task before us in 2003. Obviously, that looks more and more like a mistake, but we can't go back and cry over spilt milk. We have to deal with the situation that's before us right now.
As you know, John, one of many, this Attorney General's been held in contempt of Congress, and your book, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department, and I love your co-author as well. He's been on many times as well. This is a book, as I said, and I don't say this often, that is must-reading for the American public to know what is going on, what kind of Attorney General we have in charge, the chief law enforcement officer in the land, who he is, what he's about, and what he's doing.
Well, unlike previous Attorney Generals, Eric Holder was always very open about what he was going to do for Barack Obama. He said, I'm part of the president's team. And rather than be a nonpartisan attorney general with, obviously some emphasis with the president's priorities, you have to expect that. That's why we have a change of administrations. And I have to tell you, I think Eric Holder has proven himself over and over again to be a polarizing figure in American life, and his violations of civil liberties, his selective prosecutions should be of concern to all of us. I'll give you just one example. Steve, last year the Obama Justice Department marched into the Supreme Court and they argued that the federal government should have the right to put a tracking device on all of the cars in the country if they wanted to, without a court order and without any evidence that a crime had been committed. The Supreme Court was so aghast that they voted unanimously, including Sotomayor and including Elena Kagan and including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, against this. This was one of 12 Supreme Court rulings in the last few years. The Obama administration has lost 9-0.
Yeah, and I remember when it was, unless I'm getting confused with the 9-0 vote, not too long ago, it was nine votes. Now it's up to 12. This is unprecedented. And you know, in addition to what they're trying to get away with, there's another aspect to this, Attorney General, which you and your co-author so brilliantly put forth in the book, and that is by the title, the enforcer, and the protective nature that this Attorney General providing the shield around Barack Obama and the administration and the scandals.
Well, time after time we've seen scandals, whether it's Fast and Furious, the gun-running operation that cost the life of a U.S. border agent, to the IRS scandal, to the Veterans Administration scandal. Eric Holder promises he'll get to the bottom of it, but he withholds documents. He advises the White House not to cooperate with Congress, and in effect facilitates a cover-up.
Yeah, well, and this is something, again, evidenced by the fact that he's been held in contempt. And we could go to, I mean, with all the scandals and with all the cover-ups, John, I don't know if this is a fair question or not, but when you talk about the gun-walking scandal, the Fast and Furious, you talk about what they did to James Rosen, you talk about, you know, appointing an Obama contributor to investigate the IRS scandal, right on down the line. What's the most egregious in your view?
Oh, that's like taking an arrow out and firing in any direction. You're guaranteed to hit a target.
True. No, that's probably true.
You know, I would say this. I think that since we depend on open and transparent government, and since Barack Obama made that his most often quoted promise in the 2008 campaign, the fact that Barack Obama has refused to reveal exactly what the Justice Department is up to and why they're doing it, I think that has to be the worst, because it facilitates all of the other scandals. You know, when he said we're going to be open and transparent, what he really meant is all of your records are going to be open to us, and we're going to be very transparent about how we go through them.
All right, the racial aspect of this Justice Department, you know, the belief among the career Justice Department officials who quit, saying that you know, this administration or this department's only interested in civil rights violations if they're white on black, not if they're the other way around, and they have no interest in anything the other way around. One of the first things they did, of course, was let those Black Panthers accused of intimidating people at the polling place go after the Bush Justice Department had initiated the procedures against them. So racially speaking, this is kind of an unprecedented Justice Department as well, correct?
It's astonishing that we have a Justice Department that is supposed to believe in the color-neutral enforcement of laws, and all they do is constantly tilt the laws in a racialist direction. You know, now we have the Justice Department suing states over whether or not they want to change their election laws, something the Supreme Court just ruled last year they could do. The formulas that were limiting the states and what they could do to change election laws were outdated, 50 years old. Eric Holder has ignored the Supreme Court ruling. He is suing the states. And once again, trying to demonstrate that the law apparently is going to be race-conscious rather than based on the content of our character, as Martin Luther King put it.
Yeah, very good point. Hey, John, great book. Congratulations to you. I know you're going to be, for those of you out there who want to watch tonight, Megyn Kelly's show on Fox News Channel.
Yes, I'll be on at 9:20 Eastern Time.
There you go. John Fund on the Fox News Channel with Megyn. Great talking to you, sir. Can't wait to see you soon.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. John Fund. The book, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. And it is a very, very important piece of work, because when the chief law enforcement officer of the land is as described by John Fund and his co-author in that book, you got problems in a country, and we have them. We're coming back with the panel. Don't go away.
52-year-old male complaining of chest pains.
Clear.
Heart attacks can happen at any time. My name is Dr. Crandall, and as a cardiologist, I tell my patients that they need to be aware of the hidden symptoms of a heart attack. Here's the truth. If you suffer cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, you have just a 7% chance of surviving. That is why I've created the Simple Heart Test to help you determine your own risk of heart disease. Go online today, and in just 2 minutes, you'll discover your risk of suffering a heart attack, how you score on my heart disease risk factor scale, plus the key warning signs your heart is in trouble. Over 2 million Americans have already taken my Simple Heart Test, and I urge you to do so now, before it's too late.
Take your free online heart test today and discover how to get Dr. Crandall's bestseller, The Simple Heart Cure. Go to www.hearttest411.com today.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you're a senior or baby boomer, you may be missing out on some important information. Tens of millions of boomers are set to retire, yet many don't know that how you file your Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect. That's why Newsmax created a special report offering you the best strategies to maximize your Social Security benefits. For example, this report reveals a weird trick that could help you add up to $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. It also shows how some qualifying recipients can add up to $1,000 to their monthly payments. To get your copy with our free offer, along with 7 additional money-making booklets, simply go online. Newsmax says this report is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to our website today and find out if you qualify to add extra money to your Social Security. Remember, it's your money. You deserve the most back in your retirement.
At that moment, it hit me. This is why I joined the Guard. I couldn't believe it. I just saved the life of somebody from my hometown. Be there for your community at NationalGuard.com.
Politics, commentary, entertainment, sports, news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Over the last several days, we've seen significant gains made by ISIL, a terrorist organization that operates in both Iraq and in Syria. In the face of a terrorist offensive, Iraqi security forces have proven unable to defend a number of cities, which has allowed the terrorists to overrun a part of Iraq's territory. And this poses a danger to Iraq and its people, and given the nature of these terrorists, it could pose a threat eventually to American interests as well.
All right, folks, that's Barack Obama. More of what he had to say earlier today. And joining us now to talk about all of this mess is terrorism expert and author Rich Miniter. And once again, back with us for the second day in a row is former Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force, military intelligence expert Rick Francona. Gentlemen, good to see both of you.
Steve.
Good with you.
All right, Rick, what do you make of what the president had to say today? Among the remarks, no U.S. troops, of course. This does pose a possible threat to our interests, and also basically saying it's up to the Iraqis to fix this when push comes to shove through non-military means.
Yeah, I think he's
Well, first of all, I
understating
think the president made a mistake by ruling out.
I'm sorry. Let's start with Rick. I'm sorry. I realize there's Rich and Rick. Rick Francona.
No, sorry.
Okay. I think the president is understating the threat. I think this is a demonstrated actual threat to U.S. interests already. ISIS is nothing new in Iraq. They've been there for a long time. They've been posing a threat to the regime, the al-Maliki government for a long time. But now it's come to the forefront. His willingness to use American force is a bit confusing to me right now. He said everything is on the table, but U.S. troops aren't. So I assume that he means he might be willing to use air power, but he's taking a long time to do this. He needs to get things moving if we're going to do anything. And his agreement to send more weapons to the Iraqis is not a good idea just yet, because they don't know what to do with the weapons. They need leadership and they need some American advice, and I don't see that coming.
Rich?
Well, I think first of all, the president should not have ruled out ground troops. He should have said that classic presidential formulation that all options are on the table.
by telegraphing that there's no way that we'll put boots on the ground. What we're doing is offering aid and encouragement to the enemies of order and peace in Iraq. Secondly, the president is ignoring a key fact, which is this is not a ragtag group of militants. This is a powerful, well-funded, well-organized force, organized along military lines that has armored vehicles, heavy machine guns, and rocket repellent grenades and so on, and is able to get a successful number of defections from Iraqi military forces. So the Iraqi army is defecting and joining these guys in typical Arab fashion, joining the side of the winners. So this force is becoming larger, more organized, and more sophisticated. And it threatens the very future of Iraq and of the Middle East. If ISIL were to succeed, you would have a single extremist band going from northern Lebanon through Syria and right up to the Iranian border. It would almost certainly invite an Iranian invasion of southern Iraq. And then you'd have a full-on Arab Persian civil war in the Middle East, which would drive oil prices sky high, hurt the American economy, and threaten the lives and futures of our friends and allies, including the Israelis, but also moderate Arabs like the Jordanians. So the president is really flirting with Armageddon here and acting as if this is simply a distant question, when in fact it's a real and present danger to the future of the United States and his presidency.
Yeah, agree. I'm sure, Rick, you agree. And what about the timeline? I mean, he said he's going to meet with his military advisors. I think he used the phrase over the next few days. I mean, in the next few days, Baghdad could fall.
Yeah. Rich brings up a great point. These guys are not getting weaker. They're getting stronger. The Sunnis are rallying to these guys because this represents an opportunity to fight the Shia-dominated government in Baghdad that they believe has been oppressing them. So when these guys sweep in, it's a breath of fresh air. It says, hey, we can join these guys and achieve our own aims as well. You've got some Sunni groups that are opposing them, but for the most part, you're seeing demonstrations in Mosul in support of these guys. So it's a bigger threat than we see, and the timelines are critical here. The president can't wait a few days. If he's going to do something, he needs to start giving those orders today. If we're going to use air power, he needs to start moving airplanes today.
Well, let me go back one more for you, Rick, and then get to you, Rich. Rick Francona. Why is it that we're led to believe that, again, like with so many other things, he just found out about this when we found out by watching on TV like the rest of us? In other words, don't we have intelligence? Didn't we know this was happening? In fact, hasn't it been reported that we turned down requests to use airstrikes in the beginning before they launched this attack on these cities? And why should it take more days of meeting with his military experts? Shouldn't this have already been done?
Absolutely. But you're asking me a question that I cannot fathom why he has not done this sooner. This should have come as no surprise. We saw these guys gaining strength. We watched them in northern Syria. They took over Raqqa province. They've turned it into an Islamic caliphate, and they've been slowly moving down the Euphrates River. They're in northern Iraq. They've taken Mosul. He's had to have known this. The intelligence community is well aware of this. Anybody that can watch YouTube is well aware what's going on there. But I think we should have had assets in place now. Maybe we do. But we're going to wait a few days before we make a decision. This is unconscionable. We need to come out strong, say what we're going to do, and then start doing it.
Yeah, okay. Rich?
Well, first of all, the court delay is the court defeat. And that may well be what the president wants, that he would prefer this turns into Saigon 1975, complete with the helicopter lifting off of the roof, because then he can wash his hands of Iraq. I think the president is still caught in a cocoon from 2007, where he imagines that the Iraq war is a problem for another president, and the country will blame President Bush, who's long since left office more than 5 years ago, for whatever happens in Iraq today. In fact, he's the president. Obama's the president of the United States, and he will be held responsible for the mess that happened there. The other thing is that there were intelligence reports in January and February, open source reports, and these are publicly available. You can find them on the web, the DoD websites and so on, warning in February about ISIL or ISIS, depending on which acronym you prefer, could threaten Iraqi cities, and it's getting stronger in Anbar, and that Mosul is on their list of potential attacks. So this is February. those reports. We're now in June. So the president had ample warning.
All right, Rich and Rick, stay where you are. We're coming back with part 2 of the panel. And if you want to weigh in, folks, on social media, here's how.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you think the worst of Obamacare is behind us, think again. Soon, its new rules will affect every business, every insured person, and every Medicare recipient. That's why you need to protect yourself, your family, and your business with the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's easy to read, the fastest way for you to understand this law. The Obamacare Survival Guide gives you the tips, loopholes, and strategies you need to know. If you're insured on Medicare, a business, a medical professional, just about anyone, you need to get the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's a #1 New York Times bestseller, and already more than 500,000 Americans have gotten their copy. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. The Obamacare Survival Guide is at bookstores everywhere, or get Newsmax's $4.95 special offer and save $15 off the cover price. Just go online now or call us today.
Are you feeling tired, run down, low on energy? Well, you could be just like millions of Americans whose thyroid gland isn't functioning the way it's supposed to. Well, now there's hope to change all of that. Introducing Actilin. Actilin is a premium nutritional supplement designed to support optimal thyroid function. Actilin has 17 powerful ingredients that support adrenal health, thyroid function, energy, and your immune system. Actilin was formulated by the renowned holistic practitioner, Dr. David Brownstein. And now, for a limited time, you can get a free bottle of Actilin with our special offer. You pay only for shipping and handling. Act right now and get Dr. Brownstein's free special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Thyroid. Get Actilin and the special report. Sign up today at getactilin.com. That's getactilin.com. Or call us at the number below.
Imagine if you had a secret code for making money. A code buried deep within biblical texts.
A code that certain investment titans have quietly exploited to amass billions.
And what if this code could be used by you today to unlock vast amounts of wealth safely and ethically?
Investment expert and former pastor Sean Hyman says there is such a code. He calls it the Biblical Money Code. Sean credits this code for helping him turn his father's $40,000 retirement account into $396,000.
And today, you have the chance to tap into this life-changing biblical money code by visiting moneycode50.com.
That's moneycode, the number 50.com.
At moneycode50.com, you will find a free video that describes how you could use this biblical code in your own life to get out of debt and invest for profits.
That's moneycode50.com.
I'm Francesca Page. U.S. Army Sergeant Bo Bagdal is back on U.S. soil today. Right now, Bagdal is recovering at the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. The former Army sergeant has faced controversy stemming from allegations that he deserted his unit while on duty. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said Bagdal's health is his primary concern for now, and doctors say his recovery should take months. Bagdal was rescued from when Obama administration agreed to trade 5 high-ranking Taliban commanders for his release. And as we told you yesterday, former U.S. President George H.W. Bush celebrated his 90th birthday by making a tandem parachute jump near his summer home in Maine. And now we have the video to prove it. The 41st President of the United States jumped 6,300 feet from a helicopter while harnessed to a retired member of the Army's elite parachute team. Yesterday marked his 8th jump. The first time Bush jumped from an airplane was when his plane was shot down in World War II over the Pacific.
Fire away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. And joining us on the Malzberg panel, terrorism expert and author Rich Miniter, and retired Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force, and military intelligence expert Rick Francona. Gentlemen, good to talk to you again. Let me bring up a point here. The president, of course, speaking today on the situation with Iraq. And, of course, called it a very dangerous situation, would not rule out some kind of military response, but not boots on the ground. Also said that the Iranians have to take care of this politically within their own country, ultimately. The Iraqis, I should say, but maybe that was a Freudian slip, because let me ask you about the prospect of working with Iran here. Rick, let me ask you, the Iranians are said to be considering offering to work with the U.S. to try to fix this. Can you ever see that happening?
Yeah, isn't that the strange bedfellows argument? Well, we know that the Iranians already have 2 battalions of IRGC troops in Iraq. And they've been advising for some time, so it's not so surprising to me that they would come to the aid of their Shia brethren. Now, if we start operations there in support of that same government, are we going to now be cooperating and coordinating with the Iranians? I just don't see that happening. We may be in the same theater, but I don't think there'll be much coordination. If it is, it'll be at a very high level, and I'll just say stay out of our way.
Rich, what about it?
Well, first of all, I disagree. We did cooperate with the Iranians to assist the Northern Alliance in the Clinton era. So the Northern Alliance, remember, was backed by Iran and by us against the Taliban in the late 90s. So, you know, there is some precedent for working together with the Iranians for common objectives. You also remember the southern part of Iraq is largely dominated by, in want of a better word, mafias controlled by Iran and by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They certainly want to protect that investment. What's unclear, though, is whether the Shiites there would really welcome the Iranians. They see the Iranians as foreigners. Remember, these are Shiite Arabs. The Iranians are Shiite Persians. And the Persian-Arab divide is much bigger than the Shiite-Sunni divide. Shiites and Sunnis in Iraq still marry each other. There's a great deal of intermarriage. And the U.S. media tends to sort of overestimate that as a line of default. But the bigger question is, what does Maliki do? Does he decide to go in the direction of his Iranian paymasters, and sort of the Iranians have paid various members of his government, and go seek support and help from them, because he knows that President Obama will do very little or nothing at all to save his government and his people?
You know, Rick, yesterday you and I talked about what this, if this is a precursor to what we could expect in Afghanistan, and you said yes. You know, it is frightening to think that when we get out of there, this is going to happen there.
Well, I've never liked these date-certain withdrawals. When you tell the opposing force on a certain date, we're leaving, and I know the president likes to say he's ending these wars. He's not ending these wars. He's departing these wars. These wars continue without our presence, and I think that the lesson in Iraq should be taken very strongly in Afghanistan. We've now told the Taliban when we're leaving. They know that all they have to do is sit and wait, and they will march into victory. And I think we need to rethink that.
All right. Well, Rick Francona, Rich Miniter, thank you both very much. Good to talk to you. We'll speak to you down the road very soon. All right, folks. All right. Appreciate you coming on. All right, folks. The Steve Malzberg Show will, of course, be right back. But first, as we always do, we're going to take a look at America's Moment. And today, they're all very interesting, but another very interesting one today, MacArthur's invasion of Incheon. Stay tuned.
On September 15th, 1950, General of the Army and Commander-in-Chief of the United Nations Forces, Douglas MacArthur, launched a surprise amphibious attack against the Communist North Korean Army at the Bay of Incheon in South Korea. Approximately 3 months earlier, the North invaded South Korea and soon captured its capital, Seoul. MacArthur, against the advice of his military advisors, chose Incheon for his counterattack. The move was risky. Incheon was heavily fortified, and American soldiers would face towering cliffs on its beaches. His maneuver caught the enemy completely by surprise. MacArthur quickly cut the North Korean army in half as their beleaguered army hastily beat a retreat north. For the moment, the government of South Korea had been saved. In an address to a joint session of Congress, General Douglas MacArthur uttered those famous words, "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away," and then added,
I now close my military career and just fade away.
An American.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free one-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
3 a.m. and you're up again for the third time. It's not just affecting your sleep, it's interrupting your daily life. Frequent trips to the bathroom due to an aging prostate is a common concern, but you can now do something about it with Prostate Revive. Doctor-formulated Prostate Revive is an all-natural dietary supplement packed with 15 powerful ingredients, focused on improving prostate health by targeting the two main sources of prostate concerns, rogue testosterone and inflammation. And now, in this limited time offer, you can try Prostate Revive absolutely free. That's a free bottle, a 30-day supply of Prostate Revive, risk-free. Plus, if you call right now, you'll also receive our free report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. Call now for details on getting your free bottle, plus our doctor's report. Call 1-800-659-REVIVE. That's 1-800-659-REVIVE. Don't be a victim of an aging prostate. Start getting the sleep you need and get your life back with Prostate Revive. Claim your risk-free bottle now at 1-800-659-REVIVE.
In 2014, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you're robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at aftbook.com. That's aftbook.com.
We've all heard how military veterans adjusting to the civilian world may have certain issues.
30. 78.
If only everyone had this issue. No matter what challenge they face, Easter Seals is here for America's veterans.
Politics, commentary, entertainment, sports, news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
The president also said we need to address problems like this without sending troops to play whack-a-mole whenever there's a crisis. This is a serious national security issue, but Republicans are making political attacks.
Now they've taken control of Mosul. They're 100 miles from Baghdad. And what's the president doing? Taking a nap.
Taking a nap? I think Speaker Boehner needs to give it a rest.
Joining us right now to remark about that remark and much more is Noah Rothman, now Associate Editor for HotAir.com. And Noah, congratulations on the new assignment, and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
It's always my pleasure. All right, so Al Sharpton aside here, this is something that what amazes me, I guess, is that the president came to the microphones today, said he's going to meet over the next several days with his military advisors, try to figure out what to do. And I asked the question of our panel earlier, our expert panel, shouldn't they have known about this, weeks ago or at least days ago? Shouldn't a decision have been made already? Isn't it getting a little too late to react? Are they going to wait till these guys are in Baghdad?
Well, I think the decision was made, and the decision was made that they weren't going to do anything. Reporting has been indicating from the New York Times and from the Daily Beast, Eli Lake in particular, that they were approached rather emphatically by members of the Iraqi regime for some assistance that was kinetic, that was actually air power, not merely weaponry, and they were rebuffed. They were rebuffed a couple of times, and it's only because that this situation has spiraled out of control and become an A1 above the fold story, that we're even seeing any momentum from the administration having to consider the worst possible option politically for this administration, which is to recommit militarily to Iraq. That's the last thing they wanted. They definitely were hoping that this would go under the radar, but nobody foresaw the fall of Mosul. Nobody foresaw that the Iraqi army would just drop their arms and file in a column 4,500 people deep into captivity. Nobody saw this happening. It's a total shock to everybody, especially the administration.
And is this not an offshoot or a natural extension, or to steal from Reverend Wright, a chicken's coming home to roost for this administration's policies in Syria?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think the president admitted that today when he said that this is the result of the Syrian civil war spilling over the borders, which the president warned in September of 2013 when he spoke to the nation about the necessity of having military strikes, limited military strikes in Syria to contain that conflict. It was spilling over the borders into Jordan, into Turkey, into Lebanon, and now into Iraq. He conveniently left out Iraq in that message, but it was where, as we understand today, that they knew at the time that there were activities going on across the border from Syria into Iraq. So yes, this is chickens coming home to roost. A lot of people would say, well, if we never got into Iraq in the first place, that those chickens are coming home to roost as well. But in the most immediate future, or immediate recent past, that yes, the Syrian, the inability to contain the Syrian conflict is the beginning precursor of this.
Right, and I had David Ignatius on yesterday, Washington Post, who was out promoting his book, The Director. Give him a little credit for that. You know, he also took it back to we never should have gone in there in the first place, which I disagree with. I think we needed to go in not to bring democracy to Iraq, but to go in and make sure there were no weapons of mass destruction, as Saddam Hussein has claimed there were. But that's one issue. We're now well past that. That's almost ancient history in terms of this conflict in this situation, because as Ignatius also admitted, and he's as you well know, he's no conservative, he also admitted that the Iraq that after the General Petraeus did what he did, and the surge and the whole thing, the Iraq that President Obama was handed should not have deteriorated into the Iraq we are now seeing today.
Yeah, he's not alone. Even CNN's Fareed Zakaria, who opposed the surge in 2007, just like he opposed the surge into Afghanistan in 2009, 2010, said the same things yesterday, that the Iraq that Petraeus presided over and that bequeathed Iraq to President Obama was far more stable than the present incarnation is. And yeah, I kind of empathize with where you're at, that you can rehash history and go back into 2003 and say maybe we did the wrong move there. You can go back to 2011, 2012 and say maybe we should have intervened, or even 2013 and say we should have intervened in Syria when we had the opportunity. But those are decisions that can't be made. They were passed on, and now it has become worse. This shows rather definitively, I think, that you can't allow these conflicts to metastasize. They will be drawing the United States in. It just depends on the terms upon which we engage. And already we have seen signs that Quds is engaging, so this conflict is getting even further out of control.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to some news that is breaking today, and that is the race for the majority leadership position in the House of Representatives. Of course, made necessary by the resignation of Eric Cantor, effective July 31st. Of course, made necessary by the defeat to Mr. Bratt, who is probably going to be the next congressman from the district now represented by Eric Cantor. Raul Labrador has entered the race. And we're going to talk about this with Michael Steele, the former head of the RNC, in the next hour. I think this is a good thing for various reasons. I also think that it's a necessary thing for the Republican Party. I'm kind of shocked that the biggest Tea Party candidate said no. Even Congressman Sessions said no. And now Labrador has stepped up to run against Kevin McCarthy, who's another member of the leadership, just going to move up one if he wins and replacing Cantor. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out.
Well, he's flirted with making leadership bids in the past. He's never pulled the trigger on it. But yeah, he's doing that now. And I agree. I think it's very good for the party as a whole that he's willing to suffer, the slings and arrows, as it were, of his fellow colleagues, because the general consensus inside the Beltway is, according to the report from Robert Costa, is those votes are sewn up. This isn't going to be much of a fight. And now the attention is really shifting to the whip race. So there isn't anything more, I think, at this point than a symbolic bid. But yeah, that has a tendency to rile up, people in the grassroots. The leadership fights are not responsible to the public in general. But if there was a real, uprising, I think, in the electorate, that might have some impact on that race. And there's a whole lot of coalitions inside the Republican House conference that you need to get together in order to win a bid like this for leadership. So it's a real outside chance at this point, but it certainly invigorates the party a little bit, especially inside the House conference. And I think that's definitely important, just as you said.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and I think it's important for a lot of reasons. But let's talk about the effect on leadership from the defeat of Cantor. Whether or not Labrador could win, and I believe it's unlikely. I would like to see it personally, but it's unlikely. But so let's figure it's Boehner, McCarthy, and whoever's the whip. I mean, did leadership get a message here? Do you believe, or are they going to be tone deaf?
I don't see any message being internalized by the House leadership at this point. The alacrity with which everybody got behind Kevin McCarthy, in spite of the fact that he's very well connected, and that is a plus if you're a majority leader, but that's so out of touch with what the moment demands, with what that primary loss that Cantor suffered really conveys. The fact that they're just not internalizing that message is pretty disturbing. And I think that this Labrador push is actually going to help reinforce the notion that you cannot do business as usual necessarily in the House anymore, and that they definitely need an infusion of new blood. There was a political piece the other day which was just devastating because it really outlined just how much of an establishment figure McCarthy had become, which is why there's almost no enthusiasm for him in the grassroots. I don't detect a whole lot of enthusiasm for him in the House leadership. It's just a perfunctory understanding that this race is already over. And that kind of willingness to accept the status quo is not acceptable to the Republican grassroots anymore. They demand a fight from the representatives. And the fact that they're not seeing it in the House right now, I think is going to embolden even further action and maybe possibly even more primary fights and primary surprises.
Going to be very interesting. Noah, again, congratulations on your new position as Associate Editor for HotAir.com, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, Noah Rothman, ladies and gentlemen. Look, the media went several ways with this in the aftermath of, in the immediate aftermath of the defeat of Cantor. Does it mean the Tea Party is now, rearing its ugly head again, as they put it? And does it mean compromise is dead? Remember, we had a president who, during the budget shutdown and during the debate on the debt ceiling, said, I will not compromise. I think it's very important to put things in perspective. That's why when a Chris Christie goes and says Washington's broken and compromise is a dirty word, well, you can't compromise with a man who says, I will not compromise. And that's what the president said. The Republicans never said that on those two occasions anyway. Keep that in mind. We're coming back with Gimme 5 on the Steve Malzberg Show.
More than 76 million Americans are currently living with high blood pressure, but only about half of them have their blood pressure under control. Controlling blood pressure is mandatory because if it's not controlled, you're at great risk for such deadly conditions as heart attack, stroke, congestive heart failure, and kidney disease. Most doctors consider uncontrolled hypertension as an excuse to prescribe more medication. But there can be some hidden reasons why your blood pressure is persistently too high. To find out, here are the important questions you must ask your doctor. First, ask your doctor if there could be an underlying reason why your blood pressure is too high. The vast majority of people have essential high blood pressure, which means that it occurs for no identifiable cause. But some people have secondary high blood pressure, which means there is another condition involved, and once it is treated, their high blood pressure disappears. Here are the major causes of secondary high blood pressure: kidney problems or disorders, adrenal gland tumors, certain defects in blood vessels you're born with, congenital, illegal drugs such as cocaine and amphetamines. Second, ask your doctor if any medications you are on could be causing your blood pressure to rise. Certain medications such as birth control pills, cold remedies, decongestants, over-the-counter pain relievers, and some prescription drugs can cause or contribute to high blood pressure. This is a possibility when you consider that nearly half of all Americans over the age of 55 are on at least one prescription drug. Many take multiple prescription drugs, and almost everyone uses over-the-counter remedies. Since most of you already have my book, The Simple Heart Cure, I want you to go to chapter 12, which is all about high blood pressure. Now, here's what I want you to do. Go to your medicine cabinet and make a list of the drugs that you take. Include the over-the-counter ones as well. Check their labels or informational brochures. Do any of them list hypertension or high blood pressure as a side effect? If so, bring them to the attention of your doctor. They could be contributing to your high blood pressure. That's my health tip for this week, but I'll see you next week with another very important Heart Health Minute.
Get your copy of Dr. Crandall's best-selling book, The Simple Heart Cure, for just $4.95 with his special offer. Go to www.simpleheartbook.com to get your copy today. That's simpleheartbook.com.
We're the stronger than we look type. The braver than you think type. The type that's sure the time will come when we put type 1 behind us. We're the progress is inevitable type. The rise to every challenge type. The type that knows bit by bit the future is certain to get better. We're the plan for a cure type. The improve life along the way type. The type that will stop at nothing. Absolutely nothing. Until type 1 becomes type none.
Like when you're in office and you have to do all these political calculations to not be able to support something like gay marriage that you actually believe in, and you obviously feel very committed to human rights, and you obviously put gay rights as part of human rights, but in doing the calculus you decided you couldn't support it. Correct me if I'm reading it wrong.
Well, I think you're reading it very wrong.
And so it began, an NPR interview with Hillary Clinton and Terry Gross, the host of the show, about Hillary's changing position on gay marriage from when she was First Lady and opposed it to now when she favors it. And it went on from there.
So just to clarify, just one more question on this. Would you say your view evolved since the 90s, or that the American public evolved allowing you to state your real view?
I think I'm an American. I think we have all evolved, and it's been one of the fastest, most sweeping transformations.
No, I understand, but a lot of people already believed in it back in the 90s. A lot of people already supported gay marriage.
But yeah. to be fair, Terry, not that many. Yes, were there activists who were ahead of their time? Well, that was true in every human rights and civil rights movement. But the vast majority of Americans were just waking up to this issue. And
all right, so you would think that the NPR host would have left it alone, right? And said, okay, move on. No, to her credit, in my view, she went on with more. Watch.
I'm pretty sure you didn't answer my question about whether you evolved or it was the American public that changed.
Because I said I'm an American, so of course we all evolved, and I think that that's a fair.
So your opinion changed. A fair conclusion. So you're saying your opinion on gay marriage changed, as opposed to you just felt it was
somebody is always first, Terry. Somebody's always out front, and thank goodness they are. But that doesn't mean that those who join later in being publicly supportive or even privately accepting that there needs to be change, are any less committed. You could not be having the sweep of marriage equality across our country if nobody changed their mind. And thank goodness so many of us have.
Okay. Well, I give Terry Gross credit. I think Hillary's doing her best job at tap dancing. And the sweep across America, for the most part, is judges' decisions. It's not the voters of the states. Where people have voted, they voted overwhelmingly. Where legislators have passed bills, they've passed bills overwhelmingly upholding traditional marriage. These are judges, state by state by state, knocking this down. So let's make that clear and put that into the perspective it deserves, I believe. But Terry Gross wasn't finished. More.
So that's one for you changed your mind.
I have to say, I think you are being very persistent, but you are playing with my words and playing with what is such an
I'm just trying to clarify
issue.
So I can understand.
No, I don't think you are trying to clarify. I think you're trying to say that, I used to be opposed and now I'm in favor and I did it for political reasons, and that's just flat wrong. So let me just state what I feel like you are implying and repudiate it. I have a strong record. I have a great commitment to this issue, and I am proud of what I've done and the progress we're making.
See, there goes the testiness. There's the testiness. I wonder if there'll be any repercussions for Terry Gross, by the way. And Terry Gross really wasn't finished.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify what I was saying. No, I was saying that you maybe really believed this all along, but, believed in gay marriage all along, but felt for political reasons America wasn't ready yet and you couldn't say it. That's what I was thinking.
No, that is not true.
Okay.
I did not grow up even imagining gay marriage, and I don't think you probably did either.
Okay, that could be a fair statement. By the way, that was the end. Terry Gross left it there. But again, so she said she did not always believe in gay marriage right along and then change for political reasons. She did not believe in it when she said she didn't favor it, and now she does. So there was a change. That's Hillary's position. I think it's very good to get that on record. And very interesting. Very interesting. Sure, nobody grew up thinking there'd be gay marriage, but that doesn't mean that if you were a strong supporter of gay rights early on, as she says she's always been, then when some people were supporting it, it still doesn't really answer the question why she didn't. But hey, she gave her answer, and to her credit, and I love giving liberals credit when they deserve it, Terry Gross, kudos to Terry Gross for being very brave on the Steve Malzberg Show.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits811.com. At MyBenefits811.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits811.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits811.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits811.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits811.com, MyBenefits811.com.
Federal and state authorities urge every American family to have an emergency radio. It can save you and your loved ones from disaster. Now, Newsmax has an incredible offer for you. Get our WeatherBand emergency radio free. This emergency radio picks up AM, FM, and the NOAA weather band. It even works without batteries, essential in an emergency. Call the number below right now and you'll get this emergency radio, plus 2 great publications, including the award-winning Newsmax magazine. Each month, Newsmax brings you the important stories you won't see anywhere else. Plus, you'll get incisive commentary from David Limbaugh, George Will, Michael Reagan, Ben Stein, Dr. Laura, and more. Ben Stein says Newsmax reveals the unafraid, uncomplicated, bare-knuckles truth about today's dangerous world. Mike Reagan says, I guarantee that you'll love Newsmax magazine. This emergency radio offer with Newsmax magazine won't last long. Order online or call the number on your screen right now.
I'm Francesca Page. The price of oil continues to climb, nearing $107 a barrel as the crisis in Iraq continues. The recent insurgency by al-Qaeda-linked rebels fueled concerns about crude oil supplies. Meanwhile, President Obama said there has been no disruption of oil supplies from the country. President of the BRG brokerage Jeff Grossman says there are no disruptions in oil deliveries or production at this time. However, the violence in Iraq has many investors concerned. Meanwhile, as President Obama considers U.S. involvement in Iraq, Iraqi war veterans in America are feeling a bit disappointed. The recent attacks by al-Qaeda-linked terrorists have left many people questioning President Obama's decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Iraq. Some of those concerned are Iraqi war veterans.
It's disheartening just based on the fact that we're watching all these different things in the news of these different cities we fought so hard for, and they're starting to slide back into the hands of guys that we considered the enemy. And, you know, we fought so long and so hard over there, and we left battle buddies on the ground over there that'll never come home, never hug their mother again. And to know that it's starting to fall back into the hands of what we consider the enemy, then it's absolutely disheartening. It's borderline heartbreaking.
Despite reports that a large number of men are volunteering to help defend Baghdad, many members of the Iraqi security forces abandoned their posts when ISIS rebels started taking control of Iraq. President Obama is saying Iraq will need America's help and says he's open to all military options. Thank you.
All right, folks, hour number 2 of the big Steve Malzberg Show, Friday edition, and joining us momentarily, Daniel Henninger, Deputy Editorial Page Director of the Wall Street Journal and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, will be here to discuss his latest column for the Wall Street Journal, While Obama Fiddles. It's all about Iraq, Syria, and the mess that is the Middle East. Rich Lowry, Editor-in-Chief of National Review, joins us to discuss his magazine's editorial, The Crisis in Iraq, and how dithering is deadly. And then my friend Rita Cosby will be here, Emmy Award-winning TV and radio host, to discuss her recent interview with Pope Francis and the book that she wrote about her World War II veteran father. Sonia Nasseri-Cole, Afghan-American activist, director of the award-winning documentary The Black Tulip, will be here, and she will talk about her outrage over President Obama's recent prison swap with the Taliban. So a lot ahead, all that, gimme 5 and more on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show.
Ready? Fire away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Those are harsh words from Dan Henninger at the Wall Street Journal, but I think there's a lot of truth to them. I found myself this week rereading the last foreign policy debate of the 2012 campaign, in which President Obama assured the country that core al-Qaeda, this menace, really had been, in his words, decimated. Romney was sputtering that there's still a problem, they're getting franchises, they're still dangerous in Iraq, and that wasn't what the country wanted to hear. It certainly wasn't what the president was saying. Now, 18 months later, we have a serious problem.
All right, that's David Ignatius, who was on this show yesterday, talking about our guest right now, Daniel Henninger of the Wall Street Journal, who is joining us today. I like to have one guest talking about the next guest. It kind of brings us all together, Daniel.
Yeah, why not? Well, with this subject, I think we're all in the same boat, as it were.
For the most part, I do have David Swerdlick of TheRoot.com coming up, and he says there's nothing to blame Obama for. But this Daniel, is not only a mess, but this is now a serious mess when you combine it with Syria and where we are in the Middle East.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And guess what? Our office got a email this afternoon from NATO headquarters in Brussels, in Belgium. And what NATO is saying is that they are concerned that they have observed Russian heavy artillery and tanks moving across the eastern border of Ukraine into Ukraine.
So they're using this as a diversion to do what they want to do.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it.
Wow.
But Russian tanks moving into eastern Ukraine on top of ISIS moving on Baghdad. What a wonderful world Barack Obama has left us.
But don't worry, Daniel, because the president told us today that over the next few days, he'll be meeting with his military advisors. And I've asked this question before to previous guests. It can't be that he just found out about this on TV when you and I did. Why hasn't he met with his military advisors? Even if he did find out about it yesterday, why wasn't there a course of action already planned? I didn't want him to announce the course of action, but why didn't he already do something by today?
Yeah, well, I got into that in my column, Steve, and I sort of rhetorically raised the question, did not United States intelligence services and security agencies know that ISIS was training to do this sort of thing in northern Iraq? And the answer is yes, they did know. In fact, the Defense Intelligence Agency, when it published its threat assessment in February, said explicitly that ISIS, quote, probably will attempt to take territory in Iraq and Syria, as they demonstrated recently in Ramadi and Fallujah, unquote. So then you say, well, weren't they sending this up to the White House? And I talked to a specialist who's been close to this process for the last 5 years, and he said they probably didn't. And the reason they probably didn't is they know by now it is a complete waste of time to try to send any such thing up to the White House, because they're simply not going to be interested in doing anything about it. And on the evidence of the sorts of things that President Obama has been saying in the last 24 hours, that's true. What's the point? It's depressing.
Unfortunately, there's no. Even if I wanted to play devil's advocate, there is nothing to say.
Yeah, and you know, the Journal had a wonderful piece Monday by a couple of our Washington reporters about the extent to which the United States was caught off guard. But in that piece, they did make clear that our national security agencies recognize this, and they're really quite beside themselves over the fact that they have a leadership at the moment that just simply is not interested in reacting to this kind of reality. But I think at the margin, Steve, this sort of thing could probably do some real political damage to the president. I think his support is really beginning to erode. You get under some circumstances like this, where it's clear that the United States has to react in some way, to talk as he is, I think, is just going to begin to cause him a loss of support, even among some Democrats.
Well, of course, you know, as you well realize, he's not running for anything, and it would behoove Democrats to separate themselves from him. I mean, I don't know, you know, I just don't see how he's an asset to anybody who's running in a secure district, an insecure district, a toss-up district. I don't see how he's an asset to any of them, and I don't understand why more people on the other side, meaning the Democratic side, haven't come out along with the Boehners and the McCains and the others and blasted this president's inaction, the ineptness, and basically the overall foreign policy when it comes to the Middle East, which you also write about in your great piece, While Obama Fiddles.
Yeah. Well, I think the one individual in Congress who's begun to recognize this, if she didn't a long time ago, is Senator Dianne Feinstein of California. I mean, it was just about a week or so ago she was on CNN, I believe, and pretty explicitly separating herself from the president's view of the status of terrorism in the world. As she's put it, I see the intelligence reports, and I know that they are out there, and they are organized, and they are growing, and that they still constitute a threat to the United States. That was about 10 days before the events of this week took place. So, you know, as I say, the people like Senator Feinstein, who are aware of what's been going on with Al-Qaeda, I think have begun to find that the president's position is simply no longer defensible.
Does this, and this is a kind of off the beaten path, and we'll get back to the issue at hand, but does this offer Hillary a chance to, which she hasn't taken to my knowledge, to separate herself, or is it impossible for her to do that based on the fact that she was Secretary of State for all these years under Obama, and one could argue was complacent or following orders and did not resign if she were outraged over all of this foreign policy that has led us to this point?
Great question, Steve. And I think the answer is that, given that this is Hillary Clinton, the answer is all of those things. I mean, you know, have you been listening to her recently?
I have.
She can, more eloquently than anybody, explain away virtually anything. And on this specific subject, I think the answer is that she will try to rationalize herself out from under it. But I have to say, I think it's going to be difficult. She was Secretary of State over those 4 years, and questions will be asked about what her view was of the threat from Al-Qaeda. And I think her biggest problem, Steve, is that she has to watch her flank on the left in the Democratic Party, the progressives, and to win, she's going to need their support, and they are going to want to see full-throated support for President Obama's foreign policy, because this is the foreign policy. This withdrawal of the U.S. from the world, this lowering of the American profile, this is the foreign policy they've always wanted. They're going to have to live with it for better or worse, but I don't think they're going to let Hillary separate herself from it.
Let me ask you about getting back to the foreign policy itself. I mean, we have a chance here, and I think it was Ralph Peters who brought this up on the show yesterday, to see the Obama legacy be a caliphate that stretches from, you know, inside of Syria to, I don't know, maybe by tomorrow or the day after, to Baghdad. You got Iran in the mix now. But to me, when you look at the foreign policy of Obama from the get-go, with overthrowing Gaddafi and overthrowing Mubarak and fighting on the side of the God knows which terrorists in Syria, I just think that we really need to sit down and ask ourselves as a nation, what is our foreign policy goals? Because it doesn't seem to be any resemblance at all to what it's traditionally been forever.
Well, it has not, and that's because that the contemporary Democratic Party, the progressives, had a foreign policy dating back, as you well know, Steve, dating back to Vietnam and the McGovern years and what Gene Kirkpatrick called the San Francisco Democrats. These were Democrats, they were sort of national security Democrats like Senator Joe Lieberman
and
of
Scoop Jackson
of Washington. And Joe Lieberman was basically driven out of his own party. And there are no more Joe Liebermans in the Democratic Party. And so they've got a policy now of lowering America's profile in the world. And some of us have been warning for well over a year that when you do that, you are simply going to incentivize the bad guys everywhere, and that eventually something was going to pop big time. And now it has. What's going on in Iraq is the consequences of the United States not being engaged.
Yeah, we got about a minute left, Daniel. So what does Obama do militarily, if anything, in your view, here in Iraq?
Well, having let it disintegrate to this point, it's very difficult. But I think somehow we probably do have to hit ISIS. They cannot be allowed to take on Baghdad, because you're going to draw the Iranians into the battle, and you're going to allow Iran to move into southern Iraq, and you could end up with an effective partition with Iraq in the south and ISIS setting up a terrorist state in the north. That is just a result that is not acceptable. So, theoretically, Steve, you think the president's hand is going to have to be forced in this, and that they will have to hit ISIS.
Well, they better hurry up. And it would have been easier to do when the request was made earlier. But now it's going to get more difficult with every passing moment. But don't worry. In the next few days, he's going to meet with his military advisors and figure out what to do. So we're all okay. Daniel, great piece. Thanks as always for sharing with us. I appreciate having you on.
Good to talk to you, Steve.
Thank you. You too. Daniel Henninger, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And we go from Daniel Henninger to Rich Lowry when we return right here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Do not go away.
In 2014, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you're robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at aftbook.com. That's aftbook.com.
3 a.m. and you're up again for the third time. It's not just affecting your sleep, it's interrupting your daily life. Frequent trips to the bathroom due to an aging prostate is a common concern, but you can now do something about it with Prostate Revive. Doctor-formulated Prostate Revive is an all-natural dietary supplement packed with 15 powerful ingredients, focused on improving prostate health by targeting the two main sources of prostate concerns, rogue testosterone and inflammation. And now, in this limited time offer, you can try Prostate Revive absolutely free. That's a free bottle, a 30-day supply of Prostate Revive, risk-free. Plus, if you call right now, you'll also receive our free report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. Call now for details on getting your free bottle, plus our doctor's report. Call 1-800-659-REVIVE. That's 1-800-659-REVIVE. Don't be a victim of an aging prostate. Start getting the sleep you need and get your life back with Prostate Revive. Claim your risk-free bottle now at 1-800-659-REVIVE.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, a Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, a Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, a Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free 1-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
The odds of becoming a successful NASCAR driver, 1 in 125 billion. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 68. I'm Jamie McMurray. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Politics, commentary, entertainment, sports, news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
I am very optimistic about Iraq. I think it's going to be one of the great achievements of this administration. You're going to see 90,000 American troops come marching home by the end of the summer. You're going to see a stable government in Iraq that is actually moving toward a representative government.
All right, that was, of course, Joe Biden, and that was a couple of years ago, actually, I think 3 years ago, on with Larry King, and boy, was he a bad predictor of where we are. Rich Lowry, editor-in-chief of National Review, joins us right now. Hey, Rich.
Hey, Steve.
How are you? Good to talk to you. Great editorial in your publication online, The Crisis in Iraq, and how dithering is deadly. We could get a description of dithering, a definition of dithering from Webster's, but I'd rather have you give one. This is, as we've been discussing all day and all day yesterday, this is not just, oh, Obama screwed up again. This is a very serious concern.
Yeah, it's a complete debacle. It's just unbelievable. I mean, no one serious believed what Vice President Biden and President Obama were saying 3 years ago, because it was clear we had taken the riskiest possible course at a time when we'd achieved stability in Iraq, but a very fragile stability. And now the worst has come in the way many, many people had predicted. And you have, Al-Qaeda basically in Mosul and preparing to make a move on Baghdad. Now, whether they can take Baghdad, I sort of doubt, because I think it will very quickly break down along sectarian lines there in Baghdad, and they may take the western suburbs that are more Sunni, but they're going to have real trouble doing anything in the more Shia areas. But we could see the effect of breakdown of the Iraqi state and a kind of lawless sectarian civil war burning on, even worse than it was in 2006 prior to the surge. So it's just extremely depressing.
Well, what could and should, albeit too late at this point, Barack Obama do after he, as he put it today, meets over the next couple of days with his military advisors, as if he needs that much time to form a plan?
I think probably to affect the situation in a serious way, you'd have to do boots on the ground, and I just don't see that happening. And even if you did, I think it would be a very dubious proposition, because Steve, we held this together when we had more than 100,000 guys on the ground, and we were able to fight this two-front war against Sunni militants and Shia militants. At the same time, we were restraining Maliki and forcing him to be as responsible as someone like him can be. And are we really going to be able to do that, with 5,000 troops or 10,000 troops at this juncture when things are completely unspooling? I'm still thinking my way through this as a policy matter as well, but that just seems a really dubious proposition. So this thing is a product of American passivity. It started in Syria, where we refused to try to create and support a decent third force among the opposition. So you have the radicals taking over there, and now spilling into Iraq, and now they've taken back Fallujah and Anbar, and now they're in Mosul and in a position to threaten Baghdad, and it's just unbelievably heartbreaking.
It really is, and I can't even imagine being the Gold Star family of one of these soldiers who died in taking those cities, or someone who served and suffered a serious injury or lifelong injury, and seeing that those flags flying over those cities must be just devastating to them, more so than to you and I. But you talk about, or your staff talks about in the piece, the hand-wringing of this administration, how they love to do that. But there is no time for the dithering here, and that's why I'm so annoyed that the president, at least, first of all, what he should have done was take some action, or not tell us he's taking action, and then we'll all be surprised that he's taking the action. But he doesn't have that in him, I don't think. So I think when he says over the next few days he'll talk to his military people and decide what to do, I got to take him at his word. And when you talk about that, as you point out in the piece, every second that passes by is getting not only later and later, but much too later and much too later. And soon it's going to be symbolic in nature, whatever action they take.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend who's a real expert in this area and has been engaged in Iraq just for years and years now, and he thinks the most likely course for the administration is they'll basically do nothing and farm it out, in effect, to the Iranians. The Iranians are already... the reports are flowing forces into Iraq, and they'll fight these Sunni radicals. Of course, they're Shia radicals and really know better, but the administration will talk itself into kind of treating them as quasi-allies. And again, Steve, just given what we had achieved or on the cusp of achieving, it's really just gut-wrenching what's happening here. And okay, you're Barack Obama. You never supported the war. It was a big opposition to it. It was a big part of your political appeal. You've made certain commitments in the campaign, but still, when you get in the Oval Office and you're sitting in that chair, you're the commander-in-chief, you're the president of the entire country, and this has been a national effort, whether you like it or not, a national effort where blood and treasure has been expended. You don't just wantonly throw it away for a talking point, and that's basically what he did. Now, there's a lot of blame to go around here, and the lion's share of it goes with Nouri al-Maliki, whose misrule has been catastrophic and has really brought this on himself. But our complete pullout was a predicate for him working off of his worst instincts. Because while we were there, there are two sides to Maliki. One is he's a sectarian, and the other is that he has this fear and paranoia of the Sunnis, because he figures they're going to conspire against him and eventually march on Baghdad the way it's happening now. When we were there, we could reassure him that, no, the Sunnis aren't going to march on Baghdad while we're here, and two, restrain his worst sectarian instincts. And both of those are no longer there, and over the last couple of years, and it's just the predicate for the disaster has been building month by month.
Rich, great editorial. Everybody check it out, National Review online, and we always enjoy talking to you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great weekend.
Rich Lowry, you too, Editor-in-Chief of National Review. It is, what can I say that hasn't been said? I just wonder how this will play out. When and if this administration does decide to do something, will he go to the Rose Garden and announce it? We're gonna launch missile strikes, or we're gonna start bombing in 10 minutes, or how's it gonna be played out? And again, the longer we go along, and this isn't me, I'm not a military expert, I just have common sense, but the military experts we've talked to confirm, the longer you wait, the harder it is to do anything of significance with missile strikes or air support, because everything is so spread out by now, it's only going to get worse. All right, we're coming back. Rita Cosby, a very special friend, joins us. Don't go away.
What can that be?
52-year-old male complaining of chest pain. Clear.
If you suffer cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, you have just a 7% chance of survival.
Hi, my name is Dr. Crandall. As a cardiologist, I've dedicated the last 30 years to helping my patients win the fight against heart disease. That's why I wrote the Simple Heart Cure, to show you how easy it is to identify early warning signs, make simple heart-healthy changes, and reverse heart disease in just 90 days. You'll discover how to reduce your risk of heart attack by 61%. Lower your bad cholesterol, unclog your arteries naturally, safely lower your blood pressure, and so much more. This easy-to-read book shows you how to make simple changes to protect your heart.
Dr. Crandall's best-selling book is available at bookstores everywhere, or go online to heartcure211.com and get your copy for just $4.95.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you're a senior or baby boomer, you may be missing out on some important information. Tens of millions of boomers are set to retire, yet many don't know that how you file your Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect. That's why Newsmax created a special report offering you the best strategies to maximize your Social Security benefits. For example, this report reveals a weird trick that could help you add up to $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. It also shows how some qualifying recipients can add up to $1,000 to their monthly payments. To get your copy with our free offer, along with 7 additional money-making booklets, simply go online. Newsmax says this report is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to our website today and find out if you qualify to add extra money to your Social Security. Remember, it's your money. You deserve the most back in your retirement.
Federal and state authorities urge every American family to have an emergency radio. It can save you and your loved ones from disaster. Now, Newsmax has an incredible offer for you. Get our Weather Band emergency radio free. This emergency radio picks up AM, FM, and the NOAA Weather Band. It even works without batteries, essential in an emergency. Call the number below right now and you'll get this emergency radio, plus 2 great publications, including the award-winning Newsmax magazine. Each month, Newsmax brings you the important stories you won't see anywhere else. Plus, you'll get incisive commentary from David Limbaugh, George Will, Michael Reagan, Ben Stein, Dr. Laura, and more. Ben Stein says Newsmax reveals the unafraid, uncomplicated, bare-knuckles truth about today's dangerous world. Mike Reagan says, I guarantee that you'll love Newsmax magazine. This emergency radio offer with Newsmax magazine won't last long. Order online or call the number on your screen right now.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, we're privileged to be joined by a name and a face and a voice that you are all very familiar with. CBS special correspondent and Emmy Award-winning TV and radio host, Rita Cosby. Rita, so good to see you.
Great to see you, my old friend.
Yeah,
this is wonderful.
we go back a long way.
Love this.
And these days you're at my old stomping grounds, WABC Radio in New York. For those folks watching here in New York, they could hear you every day at 5?
At 5 o'clock, and it's The Ride Home with Pat Kiernan and Rita Cosby, and doing latest, greatest news. And boy, is there a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
and I love it. It's wonderful.
There's always so much to do. Before we get to Iraq and of course the great book Quiet Hero about your father, you interviewed the Pope. And I guess even if I weren't in the business, I'd want to know, besides what it was like to meet the Pope, which I will ask you, but how do you get to interview the Pope?
You pray, and you never know. It's so funny, even when you get to the moment where you're in front of the Pope, his handlers said, and there's a lot of handlers, I've covered White House, there was more handlers around the Pope than there was around the White House, Steve. And even when you get there, they said, we don't know if he's going to speak. He knows you're there. We know the position you're in. If he feels like speaking, he'll speak. If he's not, we can't tell the Pope what to do, of course. And so first I had put in a request, and then finally I got this message saying, you've been accepted.
Come on down.
But then you still never know till that moment, literally to the second
Wow.
before. And the most interesting thing is right before he's walking up, his guy said to me, you know, if you can speak Spanish, that would help, because of course he's from Argentina.
And you do.
And I do. It's not my native tongue, but so suddenly 30 seconds before I'm thinking, how do I talk about Mideast peace in Spanish? Luckily I remembered it.
And the interview, is that, like you said, they don't know if he'll talk. In other words, was it a sit down? Did you have time with him, or you just had to ask him a couple of questions on the fly? How'd that work?
I had a couple questions on the fly, which is a big deal because the Pope never says anything. And what happened was they put me in a position where they said, we'll try to get him to come over and say hi. And then if he's talkative, use that moment and ask him whatever you'd like. And I knew it was right before the Vatican Peace Summit. And of course, huge news where he brought together Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli President, you know, Shimon Peres. So here the two of them were meeting with him, with the Patriarch of Greece, all of those folks meeting together. So it was this incredible moment. And so I knew, okay, it's a couple days before. If I have just a few seconds, ask him. And as soon as I started talking in Spanish, his eyes lit up. He started answering me, and I kept rapid firing, asking questions.
Was there a tape recorder?
There was a recorder, and I had the whole recording, and we started going back and forth in Spanish. And he was answering half Spanish, half Italian, ironically.
That's amazing.
And then I kept talking about, well, what do you suggest about the peace process? What role does prayer play? Questions that I thought obviously would be something that would be special to him. And not only was he obviously, I think, excited to see, here's this blonde, you know, green-eyed gal who, you know, is not Spanish by descent, asking questions and speaking. He also, you could tell, was so passionate about playing a role in the peace process. You could tell I definitely interested him because it's an area that he really, you know, clearly cares deeply about. And it wasn't just a dog and pony show. I think this meeting that took place is just the beginning, and really he would truly like to play a substantive role in Mideast peace, which was very neat. And if, gosh, I think as someone who's covered a lot of the Mideast, maybe the Pope can pull some strings and make it happen.
Be a lot of string pulling.
There'll be a lot of strings.
But good, you know, a nice effort on his part, and kudos. That is just fantastic.
Thank you. You know, I had to pinch myself.
I'm sure.
Steve, because, you know, you have this chance to meet, and I've been blessed to meet a lot of people, and I rarely get overwhelmed. You've known me a long time.
And once in a while you do, but you know, for me, it's a Donald Rumsfeld, or it's an iconic sports figure, but the Pope is a whole nother plane.
It was amazing. After I walked away, and after I had this wonderful back and forth, great conversation. First of all, everybody in the place was like, "You talk to the Pope." I mean, it was like nowhere could I walk in Italy without.
Did you kneel, kiss his?
No, I held his hand, and we talked. And then first he blessed my rosaries. I had a beautiful little pillow. First, it was a personal moment for me, and he blessed my rosaries, blessed my father's war medal, which was very special, and that almost was enough. You know, enough as personally. And then I said, no, wait, I've got to ask him these questions, and we began this wonderful conversation back and forth. And everybody was on the jumbotrons, was on television. Everybody was talking about it. But I was just so honored to be speaking with him, and he was so personable and so affable, so focused. I mean, he made me feel like I was the only person in the room. Clearly took the time, clearly cared. And after he walked away, Steve, I pinched myself. I definitely got welled up, and I thought, I can't believe I just had this conversation with the Pope about Mideast peace.
That is just amazing.
I was just deeply moved too, just personally as a Catholic too.
We only have a couple of minutes left or less. Quiet hero, your dad, World War II veteran. We just had D-Day, and very quickly, I was in Texas the other day, and before we boarded our plane home, they announced that before we board, they put the coffin of a flag-draped coffin of a World War II vet who died the other day on the anniversary of D-Day.
Wow.
Everyone stood there. Nobody complained, oh, we can't board. It took a long time for the body to arrive, and everybody stood looking out the window, watching in dead silence. That said something about America and the respect that the World War II generation and those who fought still have.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful to see. And that's why I did this book as a tribute to my dad and to so many heroes. And my dad never shared the story, Steve, until just a few years ago. I discovered this old suitcase with mementos in it.
Yeah.
And when I found the story that I had someone who was a real hero in my own family, not only did I feel like I wanted to share the story about my dad, I wanted to share the story of how lucky we are as Americans, because my dad was 90 pounds and 6 feet tall when he escaped from POW camp, one of the more healthy guys, Polish resistance fighter. and literally was in the woods when an American plane came by and saved him and told him he had 15 miles to walk and he was free.
Wow.
And my dad came to a riverbed. There were American GIs on the other side, my dad on the other, and my dad couldn't even speak English. He was Polish, remember? And they said, your nightmare's over, you're free. And so when my dad shared the story, I wanted to do it to remind everybody of how lucky we are to be in this country.
The book is a few years old by now, but I'm sure you could find it, folks. Quiet Hero. It is a very touching and moving event documented by Rita Cosby.
Thank
so
you.
good to see you.
And by the way, part of the proceeds go to troops and their families. So
very
that's
important.
The best reason
Thank
of all.
you. Great seeing you. Rita Cosby, if you're in New York, listen to her on WABC. We're coming back. Sonia Nasri-Cole.
Imagine if you had a secret code for making money, a code buried deep within biblical texts.
A code that certain investment titans have quietly exploited to amass billions.
And what if this code could be used by you today to unlock vast amounts of wealth safely and ethically?
Investment expert and former pastor Sean Hyman says there is such a code. He calls it the Biblical Money Code. Sean credits this code for helping him turn his father's $40,000 retirement account into $396,000.
And today, you have the chance to tap into this life-changing biblical money code by visiting moneycode50.com.
That's moneycode50.com.
At moneycode50.com, you will find a free video that describes how you could use this biblical code in your own life to get out of debt and invest for profits.
That's moneycode50.com.
Are you feeling tired, run down, low on energy? Well, you could be just like millions of Americans whose thyroid gland isn't functioning the way it's supposed to. Well, now there's hope to change all of that. Introducing Actilin. Actilin is a premium nutritional supplement designed to support optimal thyroid function. Actilin has 17 powerful ingredients that support adrenal health, thyroid function, energy, and your immune system. Actilin was formulated by the renowned holistic practitioner, Dr. David Brownstein. And now, for a limited time, you can get a free bottle of Actilin with our special offer. You pay only for shipping and handling. Act right now and get Dr. Brownstein's free special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Thyroid. Get Actilin and the special report. Sign up today at getactilin.com. That's getactilin.com. Or call us at the number below.
Politics, commentary, entertainment, sports, news, and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
The Taliban, who were being held in Guantanamo, was conditioned on the Qataris keeping eyes on them and creating a structure in which we can monitor their activities. We will be keeping eyes on them. Is there the possibility of some of them trying to return to activities that are detrimental to us? Absolutely.
All right, well, that was a little while ago, little while meaning a few days ago, of course. It's one thing after the next. That seems like ancient history, but not to some. And Sonia Nasri-Cole, Afghan-American activist and director of the award-winning documentary The Black Tulip, also a star of that, is here to talk about that. And it's always great to see you.
Good to see you.
So nice of you to come into studio. Okay, you were away when that took place. You were out of the country, and you're back now. And now we have the Iraqi crisis, which has kind of superseded this. But let's concentrate on what took place, and let's not forget the prisoner exchange. Your reaction when you heard that these 5 senior Taliban leaders who had been held for so long at Gitmo are now free men, basically.
Devastating. Devastating. I just can't, I don't know since when we're negotiating with the terrorists. And for Afghans, a huge blow. You know, Afghans believe in conspiracy theories, so they're thinking that, you know, we're pulling out and we're releasing the bosses of the Taliban back at you. And they are really, really afraid of what's going to happen and feel deceived. And I think to Americans, also as an American, I am very, very upset about what happened, because these men were not just ordinary people who were taking orders. They were Minister of Defense of Taliban, Minister of Communication. I mean, these people,
top level
criminal of war, to be released for one soldier that is questionable.
May or may not have deserted. Yeah.
Exactly. And I wonder how the people of 9/11 that lost all their families are thinking about it. How many soldiers died to capture these people? How many? Now we're giving them to Qatar? Since when they are protector of our rights? How do we trust them? They have an embassy there. They don't need computers. They have other ways of communicating with each other. What's happening in Iraq, I will not be surprised that they have something to do with that, since they released all this hell broke loose over there.
Yeah, you never know. That's an interesting point. But let's talk about the Taliban and the people who were released. And you talk about how some members of people in Afghanistan believe that this is the U.S. selling them out. It's a conspiracy, you know. But more importantly, what these 5 leaders represent, and going back in, you know, they are terrorists, they are bad guys, they are the enemy, and here we've released them and we view them that way. But for the Afghan people, there's real consequences, direct consequences. What will those consequences be, do you think?
Well, one already said that he's going back and is going to kill Americans and Afghans. They killed thousands of Afghans. These are criminals. They are very scared, especially now that we're saying, you know, deal with yourself, we're leaving now because it's time.
Well, you have a big problem with this, as military experts do, with telling the enemy exactly when you're leaving. Right?
How can you do that? It's okay to leave, but you can't announce, like it's putting like a diamond on the center of this table and guarding it with all the police and everybody and say, by midnight, we're all going to leave, so go ahead and take it. You can leave, but you can't announce when you're leaving. They're just ready. They're just waiting time. It's not responsible. It's not thoughtful. It's going to head back home. Look at what's happening in Iraq. It's exactly what's going to happen in Afghanistan. And worse, within days, things we tried to accomplish in 10 years, within days they've taken over. They're on their way to Baghdad. And, you know, we're not talking with a Petraeus who knows how to handle these situations. We're not using our intelligent brains in the United States that know about these wars and what America stands for. And we can't just ignore and release criminals, people who the Army of the United States fought so hard to get.
Right. No, and we had the former Lieutenant Colonel Francona on the show earlier, and he said that yes, when we leave Afghanistan, this can be an actual preview of what's happening in Iraq, of what we'll see happen in Afghanistan.
I completely believe, and it's going to be a lot worse. And we're thinking, oh well, it's your countries, deal with it. Well, no, it's going to come and hit us home. That's why we cannot ignore it, because now they have safe haven in Iraq, in Syria, Afghanistan. They're controlling. Iran is moving in already in Iraq with army. Yeah. I mean, really, are we crazy? Are we not seeing what's happening? And we're saying, well, it's not our problem. Let the government of Iraq handle it. Well, that's how they're handling it.
When you hear, and this annoyed me when I heard it, not to diminish what Michelle Obama was talking about, but because, you know, we've had you on to speak about this many, many times, the role of women, education in Afghanistan. But when she presented the Boko Haram attacks in Nigeria, she presented Boko Haram as an organization that is against women getting an education or girls getting an education, when in fact, Boko Haram, just a month or two earlier, before they kidnapped all those girls, slit the throats of boys at a boarding school. I mean, they'll kill anybody. They ravage villages. They rape, they pillage, they kill, they burn. So for her to present to America, as she did in place of her husband on a weekend address, that Boko Haram, and this is a war against girls getting... So if they believe that, and if that's what they want us to believe, the terrorists are really so bad about, you know, that's the worst thing about terrorists, then how does the president release and they talked about their daughters, and they have daughters, so it comes home to them. Then how do you release these thugs back to Afghanistan? What's that going to do to help girls get an education? You know what I'm saying?
Education. These were the men who cut the nose of women, cut their breasts off, tortured them physically, raping villages. These are not just education, that they're against education, they're against destroying women in every way, shape, or form that they can. To make so light of them, it's shocking to me. It's really shocking. First of all, it's an illegal act that he did. I mean, we don't even...
You mean the release without going to Congress?
A law that he himself passed and signed. How can you do that? And to release criminals of war is against American law, from what I know. As an American citizen, forget that he's a president. I mean, that's giving them freedom. These guys are out to get us. It's beyond comprehension.
Well, the American public in the polls that have been done certainly reflect your feelings, and it's a good thing, because there are some who think the other way, but I can't put myself there. All right, when we went into Afghanistan, into your country there, after the Soviets had previously gone into Afghanistan, and you saw how that ended, and now you have a glimpse of how this is going to end. I'm asking you to speak for the Afghan people, which isn't fair, but speak for yourself. What is the future of Afghanistan? Where does it go from here? I mean, we've talked about this in the past, and you've had very dire predictions.
I still feel the same, and probably worse than ever now that these 5 are released. We created more enemies. There is a lot more Osamas now out there in Afghanistan prior to us going to Afghanistan. Afghan people are feeling deceived and really thrown out to the dogs now. And as an Afghan, I feel that we did not do the right thing, and we're not doing the right thing at all. This release was just a nail on the coffin for the Afghan people.
Okay, the exclamation point on where they feel things have been headed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as an American, I feel like I don't feel safe in America by us doing this kind of thing. It's devastating on both ends for us. And I really think we have to watch where this administration is going, because we have to protect ourselves here. And I don't know why nobody's listening to the cry of the
doesn't
people.
seem like that hard a view to see, that we endanger ourselves, certainly the people of Afghanistan, and ourselves, by releasing bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But bad guys that could anywhere in this world.
Yeah.
They are in Iraq right now. They are in Syria right now. They're everywhere.
Not to mention encouraging more bad guys to kidnap Americans and then try to trade them.
Well, they had the biggest celebration of their lives.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they had a party saying, okay, now we can make deals.
Yeah.
So all our soldiers that are in combat are in danger.
Yeah, absolutely. Sonia, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll talk to you soon, because this is a situation that's not getting any better, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say. All right, folks, we're coming back with Gimme 5, and you're not going to want to miss this one. It is Father's Day coming up, and even though I'm critical of Barack Obama, but he did sit down with Jenna Bush, who, of course, spent many years growing up at the White House on NBC, and answered some questions about being a dad. So we'll have that in our Gimme 5, and I'm sure you'll want to see that. So stay tuned right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television.
Meet John and Nancy. They've spent their lives working hard and saving money, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But unfortunately, all that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. Then one day, John and Nancy picked up a free copy of Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. This book revealed 24 little-known investments that put them back on track to a happy and secure retirement. Get your free copy of Powerful Secrets at myfinancialage.org.
If you have high cholesterol, you probably think that taking a statin drug is the best way to lower it. After all, why wouldn't you? Statins are among the most prescribed drugs in the world. But although they are great medications to those who truly need them, other people can lower their cholesterol just by adding certain foods to their diet. Here are the 3 cholesterol-lowering foods that you'll find at your supermarket. Number 1 is oatmeal. Oatmeal is a potent cholesterol-lowering food because oats are a soluble fiber. This means that they absorb the excess cholesterol in your digestive system and carry it out of your body. In addition, oatmeal also helps prevent diabetes and cancer as well. In fact, research shows that eating oatmeal on a regular basis can be as effective as taking a statin. Second, choose salmon over beef and you'll be replacing a food packed with cholesterol-raising saturated fat with one rich in monounsaturated fat. This is the type of good fat that makes salmon taste fattening, but it's not. Salmon is also packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which lower triglycerides, another dangerous blood fat. Third, if it's mid-afternoon and you're craving a snack, grab a handful of almonds. Eating almonds every day lowers your bad LDL cholesterol by about 9%. Almonds are also packed with other vitamins as well, but the best thing about almonds is that they don't taste like a health food. Almonds contain no cholesterol and are also packed with healthy monounsaturated oils. Since most of you are already reading my book, The Simple Heart Cure, I want you to go to chapter 11, in which I tell you about foods that can help you lower your cholesterol. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Health Minute. I'll see you next time.
Get your copy of Dr. Crandall's best-selling book, The Simple Heart Cure, for just $4.95 with his special offer. Go to www.simpleheartbook.com to get your copy today. That's simpleheartbook.com.
Time to wake up. I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Don't forget, you've got a job to do today.
Hey, Mom. I got the job. Thanks.
Got the job. Welcome aboard.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
The truth is that a lot of young men of color aren't doing well, partly because they don't have dads in their lives, partly because they don't have networks of support. It's important to me, partly because I grew up without a dad, and I know that I went through my own struggles.
All right, folks, welcome to Gimme 5. It's Father's Day on Sunday, so let me take this opportunity, in case I forget from here going forward, to wish all the dads out there a very happy Father's Day in advance. That was President Obama. Actually, he's being interviewed by Jenna Bush Hager, the the daughter of former President George W. Bush, on NBC. And that statement about a lot of black youth not doing well, and partially because they're fatherless, led to more questions about him being a dad. And here's how it went.
You've talked about this cycle, but you've broken this cycle for your own family. You tweeted last Father's Day, I believe it was your first tweet. I try every day for Michelle and my girls to be what my father wasn't for my mother and me.
Yeah.
Does this, the fact that you didn't have a dad, has it changed your life as a father yourself?
Interesting question, and let's watch the answer.
Yeah, I made a decision in young adulthood that it was going to be important for me to make sure that I was there for my kids. I've really tried to make sure that I didn't miss parent-teacher conferences, that I didn't miss the ballet recitals or the soccer games. I try to be disciplined about if I'm in town, being home for dinner every single night. And I think it's made a difference. You know, the one thing the girls know about me is I love them to death.
All right, look. I have no idea what kind of father Barack Obama is, just like you have no idea what kind of father I am. And I have no idea to a great extent what kind of father and some of the people I work with are. I mean, you can only judge from afar unless you're in their lives directly or very closely indirect manner. But I hope he's a good father. I certainly hope he's a good father. I don't have any reason to believe he's not a good father. I may disagree with everything he does, and I may not think he's in love with this country and its history, but could he be a good father? Yeah, and if he is, I hope he is. I hope he is. How's that? Boy, I'm praising liberals in the previous Give Me Five, and now I'm hoping Obama's a good father in this one. I must be softening up more.
How do you think your girls would describe you?
I think they would say that I am a good, fun dad who teeters on the edge of being embarrassing sometimes. We set some pretty firm rules early on in their lives about cleaning up after themselves and making their beds and waking up on time.
Even here?
Even here. They've got their acts together, and we really don't have to check on their homework or nag them too much about stuff. They handle their business, so we're really proud of them.
All right, good. And it must be weird for Jenna Bush to be back there, where she grew up over the course of 8 years along with her sister, and must be pretty neat. Now, let me criticize a little. Now, Barack Obama was at a White House event and taking questions from the Tumblr CEO, and he made this statement, which was part of a larger statement, but still I found it pretty bizarre. Watch.
Don't get cynical. Guard against cynicism. I mean, the truth of the matter is that for all the challenges we face, all the problems that we have, if you had to choose any moment to be born in human history, not knowing what your position was going to be, who you were going to be, you'd choose this time. The world is less violent than it has ever been. It is healthier than it has ever been. It is more tolerant than it has ever been.
And he went on and on and on to praise the world as it is today. The world is less violent than it's ever been. Debatable. I mean, debatable. But, the world is pretty violent. The world is pretty violent. There's a lot of intolerance. He claims tolerance. Maybe he's talking about LGBT. But tell it to Christians in the Middle East who basically are dwindling by the day. If they're lucky, they're leaving. If they're unlucky, they're being killed. So I take exception with that. But happy Father's Day to Barack Obama and to all on the Steve Malzberg Show.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits811.com. At MyBenefits811.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits811.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits811.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits811.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits811.com. MyBenefits811.com.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you think the worst of Obamacare is behind us, think again. Soon its new rules will affect every business, every insured person, and every Medicare recipient. That's why you need to protect yourself, your family, and your business with the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's easy to read, the fastest way for you to understand this law. The Obamacare Survival Guide gives you the tips, loopholes, and strategies you need to know. If you're insured on Medicare, a business, a medical professional, just about anyone, you need to get the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's a #1 New York Times bestseller, and already more than 500,000 Americans have gotten their copy. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. The Obamacare Survival Guide is at bookstores everywhere, or get Newsmax's $4.95 special offer and save $15 off the cover price. Just go online now or call us today.
All right, folks, it's the final hour of the day, the final hour of the week on the Steve Malzberg Show. David Swerdlick, columnist, contributing editor for TheRoot.com. He'll be here to discuss how he says President Obama is not to blame for the Sunni extremist army that is now taking over Iraq. That should be fun. Steele and Unger from Steele and Unger on Sirius XM fame. They're both here, Michael Steele and Rick Unger, and they're going to discuss Eric Cantor's replacement or the race for majority leader in the House of Representatives and the latest entry, who you may know or you may not know, but you'll find out all about him. Then, of course, we'll also talk about Iraq, their radio show, and much more. Then the Malzberg panel back again, terrorism expert and author Rich Miniter, and retired Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force and military intelligence expert Rick Francona. Ken Timmerman, investigative journalist, Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. We'll talk about the nexus between Syria and ISIS and what's going on in Iraq. All that, give me 5 and more on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
Senior officials in this White House have repeatedly over the years, and as recently as Tuesday, described as the president's top foreign policy accomplishments ending the war in Iraq and decimating and destroying core al-Qaeda. Given what we're seeing now in Iraq, can you still claim those as 2 of your signature achievements?
There is no question that the president pledged to end the war in Iraq, and he did. And that was...
There's no war in Iraq right now?
U.S. combat mission in Iraq.
All right, so he's playing word games. That was good. Jonathan Karl asking Jay Carney yesterday, you know, as recently as Tuesday, the administration's claiming that the crown achievement of Obama's foreign policy is ending the war in Iraq. So are you're still claiming that? You're still proud of that? Here's one more.
What is also the case, and what the president made clear as we wound down the war in Iraq, is that we need to be a good partner to the government in Iraq and provide the assistance that we can at their request to help them meet their security challenges, and we have done that. Ultimately, Iraq's future has to be decided through reconciliation of the in Iraq and a unified approach to dealing with the challenge posed by a group like the ISIL.
All right, so there's the president's spokesman yesterday. Now, our next guest, David Swerdlick, columnist and contributing editor for TheRoot.com, doesn't think that Barack Obama is to blame for any of this. So before we get to David, let us all watch this. Obama should have seen this coming. He was asleep at the switch. So we could take it back to Bush and whether or not we should have gone in. I think we went in for the right reasons. I think we stayed too long and tried to do the wrong thing. So, I mean, I'm just saying we could debate that.
We could debate it, then history will debate it. What I agree with you about entirely is that after President Bush's surge in Iraq, after General Petraeus's really brilliant counterinsurgency campaign there, the situation was better. And I think it was handed over to President Obama in a shape that didn't have to end up with al-Qaeda's black flags flying in Fallujah, Mosul, Tikrit, all those cities. So.
All right, folks, that was David Ignatius of the Washington Post on our show yesterday. No conservative, he, obviously. And joining us now is David Swerdlick, as we mentioned, columnist and contributing editor for TheRoot.com. David, always good to see you, sir.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. All right, so I know that you have a really different take on this, that somehow Barack Obama shouldn't be blamed for what's going on in Iraq. How so?
Yeah, I don't think he should be blamed, and I'm not second-guessing David Ignatius, who's obviously an expert in these kind of, foreign affairs, and like you said, is not a natural critic of the president. But I will say that, I do think the only way to look at this, if you're going to start assessing blame, is to go all the way back to the beginning of the war. And I do, and I would, and I have, and I continue to argue that, President Obama did take the right position in 2002, that we shouldn't have ever been there in the first place. And then when you got to his presidency and the end of 2011 and the decision to exit without renegotiating the status of forces agreement that had been negotiated by the Bush-Cheney administration, or I shouldn't say not negotiating, but not to sign a new one, it was not in the interests of President Obama, what he had promised to the American people. It was not, I take it in his view, in our interest to remain without certain conditions and concessions that they couldn't get from the Iraqi government. And so they followed through with exiting Iraq after essentially a decade of war. And it's one thing to say, oh, we could have done it differently. It's one thing to say, oh, there's an argument to be made for having left 10,000 or 15,000 troops there, which there is. But to blame Obama for that, I think, is to way oversimplify the entire situation.
Well, again, to be fair, Ignatius also expressed, which I think you're kind of saying also, that we never should have gone in the first place. Right. But that's neither here nor there at this point. Again, Barack Obama could only blame George W. Bush for so many things for so many years. We're now 6 years into Obama being commander-in-chief, and as you said, decisions were made under his command that left no American troops in Iraq. What did Obama and his staff and his experts and his foreign policy team, which John McCain says should all be fired, what did he think was going to happen?
No, again, arguments were made at that time. Here's where McCain is right. People like him, people in the Senate, other leaders did argue that there was a reason for us to leave a residual force in Iraq. And I'm not suggesting that they have no point. There was an argument to be made that residual troops might be a buffer against the kind of violence we're seeing this week. My question would be, one, these people's credibility on the issue also has to be taken into account, because Senator McCain and others, going back to 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, were arguing, oh, the Iraqi army will be ready to stand up so we can stand down. Every 6 months they were saying that for 5 or 6 years, and it never came to pass. The other thing is that even though President Obama opted not to extend the status of forces agreement, this is a consistent position that he's held from 2002, 2007, 2008, 2011, and this is the position that people voted for, with the expectation that he was going to try to make a dignified and exit from Iraq. And so if people can say, well, they don't like the decision, but he was leading in a particular way that was consistent. And finally, Steve, I understand the point you're making, but when it comes to this idea of staying there and troops might have helped, if we had 10,000 troops there now and they were fighting and dying in Mosul now, I don't think the McCains of the world have answered the question, what would they be fighting and dying for?
Well, you don't know that this group would ever have dared to do what they're doing. They certainly would not have taken over the U.S. sophisticated weapons from deserting Iraqi troops who are now running away. With an American presence, it would have been, you cannot assume that the scenario would have been the same. So to say, I mean, so on one hand, you're saying Obama did what he did to be. He's been consistent on this. He ran on this. This is what he believed. That's why he did what he did. Let's assume all that's true. But then he's to blame for where we are, based on his beliefs and his consistency and his following through.
Steve, the problem I have with that argument, again, is that this is one issue where I do think you have to lay the blame first and foremost at Bush and the other people, Republicans and Democrats, who authorized the invasion and occupation of the war in Iraq. We should not have been there in the first place, and President Obama was in part elected and in part has governed in a way that, with the idea of, we've done our duty in Iraq, we've tried to stabilize the position of the Iraqi government and our relationship with them as best we can, going to the end of 2011, which was 8+ years after we invaded, and not re-signing a status of forces agreement and bringing troops home. He promised to get out of Iraq and stay in Afghanistan, and that has been the policy.
No, I understand, but obviously it was the wrong decision, because this is where we are now. And in fact, Obama himself today said that this could be a threat to U.S. interests, and we're going to have to do something. Now, we're not putting troops on the ground, thank God, but we're going to have to probably take military action. So he made a mistake. I mean, how could you say it's not? How could you say he didn't? Now, he acknowledged today, he didn't say, well, as he did say in part, this has to be resolved ultimately by the Iraqi people, blah, blah. But he did say, we may have to take military action, and it's a threat to U.S. interests. So that being the case, it was his policies since Commander-in-Chief, since becoming Commander-in-Chief, that led to this mess. He admitted it.
Steve, the biggest problem I have with the way you've laid it out is the use of the word obviously. In the same way that I can't know what would have happened if we had left 10,000 or 15,000 troops in Iraq, I don't think anybody can know what would have happened, essentially the other way. In other words, if we had left 10 or 15,000 troops, how do we know that that would not have destabilized the politics there? In another way, a lot of experts, you brought out David Ignatius. There's experts like Fareed Zakaria who have argued that Maliki would have lost, his government would have lost credibility with Shiites and Sunnis if he had agreed to allow Americans to stay, with the condition that our troops were immune from prosecution under Iraq law, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I go back to, I know this is slightly different than what you're saying, and again, I go back to, I don't think you can know for sure that none of our troops would have been killed these last 3 years.
Well, no. Well, how could you guarantee that? Of course not. I mean, it's a dangerous place, and war is a danger. But we probably wouldn't have gotten to the point where all the blood and treasure that was spilled, and the limbs that were lost, and the lives that were taken from Americans' bravest and best would go to waste. In effect, as Ralph Peters said, and I'm not putting words in his mouth, but he said it's for naught, with these al-Qaeda flags now flying all over the place. And by the way, I think this has to be taken in a larger context. We have fought now on the side of al-Qaeda in Libya. We have fought on the side of al-Qaeda in Syria. We are now being overrun. The country that we helped secure is now being overrun by al-Qaeda. They're building a caliphate from Central Syria all the way maybe to Baghdad. That will be Obama's legacy, along with ousting a friend of the United States in Mubarak and supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. You have to look at everything Obama's done, and it seems to be a constant theme. Support the terrorists and support the Brotherhood.
No, I think saying support the terrorists and support the Brotherhood is way over the top, Steve. Look, I think it is.
You don't think we supported the Muslim Brotherhood when we ousted Mubarak?
Steve, I think it's much more fair to criticize Obama in Libya because he elected to intervene there along with France and England and other NATO allies, and it initially was a successful military intervention for which the administration, the State Department, the Department of Defense didn't do the proper follow-up to shore up, forces or political factions that were nominally...
All right, David, but I just want to make it clear what I said when you said it was over the top. We have fought alongside, there's no denying, questionable people, terrorists with all kinds of al-Qaeda and other affiliations in Syria, in Libya. We certainly did support the Muslim Brotherhood after the ouster of Mubarak. In fact, when the Brotherhood was ousted and the head was put in jail, this administration had objected vehemently. I mean, there's no denying what's happened under Obama's command.
Steve, the Obama administration did work with and talk to and negotiate with the Muslim Brotherhood government. The prime minister's name is escaping me right now. In Egypt,
Morsi.
Yes, right. He worked with Morsi. He worked with Mubarak before Morsi. He worked with Morsi, and then now he's working with al-Sisi. The President Obama and the Obama administration have maintain this policy of we're going to maintain our military ties with Egypt. We are going to maintain our security ties with Egypt because the Egyptian military, we work with them on issues of security, but they have not pushed for one government in Egypt, nor have they abandoned one government in Egypt. When Morsi was there, we talked to them. When Morsi was ousted by Al-Sisi, we talked to Al-Sisi.
When Morsi was ousted by Al-Sisi, we condemned it. We objected to it. We demanded that he be reinstated. Come on, I mean, you're not presenting a real fair picture. But listen, this is a fascinating debate, David. And
I don't think you are painting a fair picture.
Of course you don't.
Obama's policy is to talk to the people who are in charge,
and to also
to work with people who have the interests of the United States.
Well, I don't see how Al Qaeda's in Libya and Syria have the interests of the United States, and I don't see how negotiating with the Al-Qaeda network and setting a precedent there is in the interest of the United States either. But David, that's what makes the world go round. We'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Working with the Egyptian military is in our security interest.
All right, I agree with that. But I don't think they're doing it as much as they did. We'll talk to you again. David Swerdlick, ladies and gentlemen, and we're coming back on the Steve Malzberg Show, the panel. Don't go away.
In 2014, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you're robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at aftbook.com. That's aftbook.com.
Are you feeling tired, run down, low on energy? Well, you could be just like millions of Americans whose thyroid gland isn't functioning the way it's supposed to. Well, now there's hope to change all of that. Introducing Actilin. Actilin is a premium nutritional supplement designed to support optimal thyroid function. Actilin has 17 powerful ingredients that support adrenal health, thyroid function, energy, and your immune system. Actilin was formulated by the renowned holistic practitioner, Dr. David Brownstein. And now, for a limited time, you can get a free bottle of Actilin with our special offer. You pay only for shipping and handling. Act right now and get Dr. Brownstein's free special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Thyroid. Get Actilin and the special report. Sign up today at getactilin.com. That's getactilin.com. Or call us at the number below.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free 1-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, welcome back. And, you know, sometimes you get unexpected visitors, and I was thrilled when I was just walking around aimlessly in the lobby and saw these two gentlemen and grabbed them, and here they are, and we welcome in the co-hosts of Unger and Steele, or Steele and Unger, as it might more appropriately be named. They were fighting about it before we went on. It's Steele and Unger. It's on Sirius XM Radio on Saturdays, tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact, 11 a.m. Eastern. Check it out. And we welcome in Michael Steele, the former head of the RNC, and our friend Rick Unger. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, Steve?
I never know. You see, you walk around the halls and just wander
in the neighborhood,
around.
Man.
You never know who's going to be walking around. Okay, first of all,
we're breaking in our new comedy act at the Coke. Right. We're hoping everybody will come by. Don't forget to tip your waiter.
I want to get to the what's going on with Cantor and the race for his replacement, but I do want you to weigh in, Michael, on what's going on in Iraq. And, you know, there were those who are coming to the defense. We had Dave Swerdlick on earlier from the Root.com who said Obama can't be blamed for this. It's Bush. I mean, there's no way. We had David Ignatius yesterday who said Obama was handed an Iraq where this should not be the result.
Well, I think that's largely true. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, the backward-looking effect of all of this is not going to solve the current problem, and it certainly won't address and nor give an answer to the question, what does Iraq look like when we're done? We're already beginning to see that the reality of not answering that question on the front end is beginning to bite this administration very much as I think it would have bitten the Bush administration. The idea that you're going to continue to prosecute this matter the way we have is clearly not the solution. We have now the emergence of ISIS and this new Iranian threat, a new Islamic threat that is, quite frankly, a group that got kicked out of Al-Qaeda because they were so hard-edged. And so I think that this new dynamic poses a real problem for the administration. The second part of that is you got to have a broader plan that encapsulates not just what the U.S. interest is, but what the interests are in the region. As you can see, as you look at the map, the spread of ISIS from Syria and affecting Turkey and certainly Iraq and other parts of the region, it's going to be a real problem.
Rick, is Obama blameless here, as some are claiming?
I don't know if you can say he's blameless. I think there's enough blame to go around. Look, the extent of Obama's blame comes down to what you believe on one issue. Was he responsible for not negotiating hard enough to keep troops in Iraq? At which point you could argue that had we had some troops there, maybe it would be different today. Or, I got to be honest, my own take on this is while there was some political upside to the president in getting us out fully, I think that the Iranians have been calling the shots with the Maliki government since day one, and there was no way the Iranians were going to let him enter into that kind of an agreement with us. So I don't think either side was particularly interested in continuing. That said, I really wish we would. I know how much fun it is to play the blame game, but folks, we got a very serious problem here. And to the extent that we have any great minds in Washington,
you have good faith.
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather they'd be focused on what do we do now, because we are in a real pickle here.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. And of course, now Iran is toying with the idea of offering to work with us to solve this problem. And why, Michael, why do I just feel that this is something Barack Obama would welcome and praise?
Well, I think there's some truth to that. I think, ironically, that the president may find a safe harbor in Iran, which actually plays, I think, very well to Rick's point, into Iran's hands ultimately. Look, can you imagine Iran being the savior here? Iran helping the United States with its problem in Iraq? It's just the height of irony, and given all of the tension that has existed up to this point between the United States and Iran. Iran has a long-term strategy that has a lot to do with controlling what happens in the Middle East. They will use this opportunity to further that strategy, and the U.S. needs to be smart, not just about how to deal with Iraq, but especially smart how to involve a very shifty, crafty Iran.
All right, I want to switch gears, guys, to some news that you made this morning on Morning Joe, Michael, and of course, as former RNC chair, what you say holds a lot of weight on this matter. Majority Leader Eric Cantor lost, and Majority Leader Eric Cantor announced that he's resigning that position effective July 31st, and now there's nearly a candidate to replace him. There was some Tea Party expectations, and then there was Sessions, and that neither one of those came to fruition. So you got Kevin McCarthy, who in my view, and I think in your view, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Michael, is just another extension of John Boehner, just another Eric Cantor. It's not going to sit well with the Tea Party. And now Raul Labrador says he's in. What do you see happening here?
I think that's a good thing, and I salute Congressman Labrador for getting into this race. I think it's important that this get worked out within the caucus, that those conservative voices that have held the line when there are those in leadership who wanted to cave in and buck the trend, to hold back on spending and things like that. You've got to include those folks at the table. The Tea Party caucus does have a voice here. I think they have a play here, and I think Raul appropriately represents that. At the end of the day, McCarthy is quintessential establishment, and you really are beginning to hear within the rank and file, not just the caucus, But out on the streets across America, a lot of conservatives are saying, wait a minute, didn't you take the lesson from what happened in Virginia? Haven't you taken the lesson from what has happened in other races around the country? That we want to be a part of this process, and we want to be able to have some voice in how the party governs going forward. And I think that's a battle that needs to get fleshed out.
Rick, someone on your side, you're just watching this and smiling and laughing, or what?
Well, actually, I mean, look, I think it's probably pretty safe to say that the Republicans in Congress are slightly more interested in Michael's opinion than my own when it comes to their.
I wouldn't be too sure.
Well, they're not asking you. I'm asking you.
but I do kind of agree. Look, I was shocked that McCarthy wrapped it up so quickly, and that the Tea Party caucus was backing off so easily. I'm a big believer in the old adage, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. If I were John Boehner, and we all understand that I don't have the suntan for it, but if I were in his shoes, I absolutely would have been looking for the right Tea Party congressman to fill that job. I was shocked that it wasn't happening. I don't know if Labrador can win, but they ought to at least put on a show.
But Michael, we got 30 seconds. Do you see any way Labrador could win, or is it going to be McCarthy?
I think he can build this thing. Look, they shortened the timetable on this to give the establishment the advantage. I think Raul coming in now turns the tables a little bit. We'll see what kind of a game plan he can put together on the field.
But if you had a bet right now.
If I had a bet right now, I'd honestly say it's 50-50 because
really?
I say that because I don't know exactly how the caucus is going to break, but I suspect early they'll stand strong with him.
All right. Well, listen, guys, a pleasure speaking to both of you. Michael Steele, Rick Unger, the co-hosts of Steele and Unger on SiriusXM. Check them out Saturday. Tomorrow is Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern. We're coming back. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you're a senior or baby boomer, you may be missing out on some important information. Tens of millions of boomers are set to retire, yet many don't know that how you file your Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect. That's why Newsmax created a special report offering you the best strategies to maximize your Social Security benefits. For example, this report reveals a weird trick that could help you add up to $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. It also shows how some qualifying recipients can add up to $1,000 to their monthly payments. To get your copy with our free offer, along with 7 additional money-making booklets, simply go online. Newsmax says this report is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to our website today and find out if you qualify to add extra money to your Social Security. Remember, it's your money. You deserve the most back in your retirement.
What can that be?
52-year-old male complaining of chest pains.
Clear. Heart attacks can happen at any time. My name is Dr. Crandall, and as a cardiologist, I tell my patients that they need to be aware of the hidden symptoms of a heart attack. Here's the truth. If you suffer cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, you have just a 7% chance of surviving. That is why I've created the Simple Heart Test to help you determine your own risk of heart disease. Go online today, and in just 2 minutes, you'll discover your risk of suffering a heart attack, how you score on my heart disease risk factor scale, plus the key warning signs your heart is in trouble. Over 2 million Americans have already taken my Simple Heart Test, and I urge you to do so now, before it's too late.
Take your free online heart test today and discover how to get Dr. Crandall's bestseller, The Simple Heart Cure. Go to www.hearttest411.com today.
Federal and state authorities urge every American family to have an emergency radio. It can save you and your loved ones from disaster. Now, Newsmax has an incredible offer for you. Get our Weather Band emergency radio free. This emergency radio picks up AM, FM, and the NOAA Weather Band. It even works without batteries, essential in an emergency. Call the number below right now and you'll get this emergency radio, plus 2 great publications, including the award-winning Newsmax magazine. Each month, Newsmax brings you the important stories you won't see anywhere else. Plus, you'll get incisive commentary from David Limbaugh, George Will, Michael Reagan, Ben Stein, Dr. Laura, and more. Ben Stein says Newsmax reveals the unafraid, uncomplicated, bare-knuckles truth about today's dangerous world. Mike Reagan says, I guarantee that you'll love Newsmax magazine. This emergency radio offer with Newsmax magazine won't last long. Order online or call the number on your screen right now.
I'm Francesca Page. U.S. Army Sergeant Bo Bagdal is back on U.S. soil today. Right now, Bagdal is recovering at the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. The former Army sergeant has faced controversy stemming from allegations that he deserted his unit while on duty. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said Bagdal's health is his primary concern for now, and doctors say his recovery should take months. Bagdal was rescued from when Obama administration agreed to trade 5 high-ranking Taliban commanders for his release. And as we told you yesterday, former U.S. President George H.W. Bush celebrated his 90th birthday by making a tandem parachute jump near his summer home in Maine. And now we have the video to prove it. The 41st President of the United States jumped 6,300 feet from a helicopter while harnessed to a retired member of the Army's elite parachute team. Yesterday marked his 8th jump. The first time Bush jumped from an airplane was when his plane was shot down in World War II over the Pacific.
Fire away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. And joining us on the Malzberg panel, terrorism expert and author Rich Miniter, and retired Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force, and military intelligence expert Rick Francona. Gentlemen, good to talk to you again. Let me bring up a point here. The president, of course, speaking today on the situation with Iraq. And of course, called it a very dangerous situation, would not rule out some kind of military response, but not boots on the ground. Also said that the Iranians have to take care of this politically within their own country, ultimately. The Iraqis, I should say, but maybe that was a Freudian slip, because let me ask you about the prospect of working with Iran here. Rick, let me ask you, the Iranians are said to be considering offering to work with the U.S. to try to fix this. Can you ever see that happening?
Yeah, isn't that the strange bedfellows argument? Well, we know that the Iranians already have 2 battalions of IRGC troops in Iraq. And they've been advising for some time, so it's not so surprising to me that they would come to the aid of their Shia brethren. Now, if we start operations there in support of that same government, are we going to now be cooperating and coordinating with the Iranians? I just don't see that happening. We may be in the same theater, but I don't think there'll be much coordination. If it is, it'll be at a very high level, and I'll just say stay out of our way.
Rich, what about it?
Well, first of all, I disagree. We did cooperate with the Iranians to assist the Northern Alliance in the Clinton era. So the Northern Alliance, remember, was backed by Iran and by us against the Taliban in the late 90s. So, you know, there is some precedent for working together with the Iranians for common objectives. You also remember the southern part of Iraq is largely dominated by, in want of a better word, mafias controlled by Iran and by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They certainly want to protect that investment. What's unclear, though, is whether the Shiites there would really welcome the Iranians. They see the Iranians as foreigners. Remember, these are Shiite Arabs. The Iranians are Shiite Persians. And the Persian-Arab divide is much bigger than the Shiite-Sunni divide. Shiites and Sunnis in Iraq still marry each other. There's a great deal of intermarriage. And the U.S. media tends to sort of overestimate that as a line of default. But the bigger question is, what does Maliki do? Does he decide to go in the direction of his Iranian paymasters, and sort of the Iranians have paid various members of his government, and go seek support and help from them, because he knows that President Obama will do very little or nothing at all to save his government and his people?
You know, Rick, yesterday you and I talked about what this, if this is a precursor to what we could expect in Afghanistan, and you said yes. You know, it is frightening to think that when we get out of there, this is going to happen there.
Well, I've never liked these date-certain withdrawals. When you tell the opposing force on a certain date, we're leaving, and I know the president likes to say he's ending these wars. He's not ending these wars. He's departing these wars. These wars continue without our presence, and I think that the lesson in Iraq should be taken very strongly in Afghanistan. We've now told the Taliban when we're leaving. They know that all they have to do is sit and wait, and they will march into victory. And I think we need to rethink that.
All right. Well, Rick Francona, Rich Miniter, thank you both very much. Good to talk to you. We'll speak to you down the road very soon. All right, folks. All right. Appreciate you coming on. All right, folks. The Steve Malzberg Show will, of course, be right back. But first, as we always do, we're going to take a look at America's Moment. And today, they're all very interesting, but another very interesting one today, MacArthur's invasion of Incheon. Stay tuned.
On September 15th, 1950, General of the Army and Commander-in-Chief of the United Nations Forces, Douglas MacArthur, launched a surprise amphibious attack against the Communist North Korean Army at the Bay of Incheon in South Korea. Approximately 3 months earlier, the North invaded South Korea and soon captured its capital, Seoul. MacArthur, against the advice of his military advisors, chose Incheon for his counterattack. The move was risky. Incheon was heavily fortified, and American soldiers would face towering cliffs on its beaches. His maneuver caught the enemy completely by surprise. MacArthur quickly cut the North Korean army in half as their beleaguered army hastily beat a retreat north. For the moment, the government of South Korea had been saved. In an address to a joint session of Congress, General Douglas MacArthur uttered those famous words, "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away," and then added,
"I now close my military career and just fade away."
You're watching
An American Moment.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along, and Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep, but it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight. Nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind: to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
Learn about our risk-free trial offer at prostaterevive.com/Jim.
Mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 58 years old.
For me, it was heart-wrenching.
It takes a toll on everyone. I mean, it's a depressing disease to watch unfold before your eyes.
You just don't see the person's soul is like gone.
This disease just ravages a family.
It changes your life.
The magnitude of it is indescribable.
Now is the moment. If we work together, we can stop this epidemic.
Contact Bright Focus and learn more.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
Now, this threat is not brand new. Over the last year, we've been steadily ramping up our security assistance to the Iraqi government with increased training, equipping, and intelligence. Now, steadily ramping up our security assistance to the Iraqi government with increased training, equipping, and intelligence. Now, Iraq needs additional support to break the momentum of extremist groups and bolster the capabilities of Iraqi security forces. We will not be sending U.S. troops back into combat in Iraq, but I have asked my national security team to prepare a range of other options that could help support Iraq security forces, and I'll be reviewing those options in the days ahead.
All right, folks. Of course, the president speaking earlier today, and joining us now to talk about this in depth is Kenneth Timmerman. He's an investigative journalist. He's the author of Dark Forces, and he's also running for lieutenant governor of the great state of Maryland. Kenneth, good to talk to you again, sir.
Good to talk to you, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. All right, so let me ask you how we got to this place. I mean, the president yesterday was accused by John Boehner of being napping. John McCain said fire the whole national security team. How could this happen right under our noses? And now the president is saying, well, this isn't a surprise. We've been helping and preparing for this basically for a year. What's going on?
It's pathetic. Frankly, it's pathetic. Look, Steve, I've gone to northern Iraq many, many times in recent years. I wrote a book about the persecution of Christians in northern Iraq called St. Peter's Bones, and this was entirely predictable. We've seen this coming for years. The Iraqi central government was very weak in Mosul. The Kurds were trying to encroach on Mosul and the whole Nineveh Plain area, which is where most of the Christians live. My fear really is that the next thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have huge massacres of Christians in Mosul and the surrounding areas, and this could lead to an Iraqi civil war.
Well, we've had massacres of Christians in other parts of that world, and of course the numbers dwindling all over the Middle East when it comes to Christians. And as I said earlier in the show, if they're lucky, they're leaving on their own. But the president saying today that no boots on the ground, and I don't think anybody wants boots on the ground. But there were reports yesterday that the U.S. was asked for airstrikes while these terrorists were, massing, while they were together, and they were denied. And now, they're all spread out. It's gonna. I mean, who are you going to strike and where?
Now it's very difficult once they're inside the city of Mosul, which is, an enormous place. It's an urban area. When they were outside, and I know the outskirts of Mosul very well, there are places that they clearly could have hit them as they were gathering out in some of the desert areas or out. It's open country in many places. So if those airstrikes had been requested and they were refused, that is a disgrace.
All right, talk about the nexus, if you will, between Syria and ISIS, and where ISIS came from.
Yeah, ISIS, which is the Islamic State of Iraq, and the Sham, which is the Levant, or the area of Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, is I would say the intelligent, war-smart brand of Al-Qaeda. They are very good at military strategy. They've shown it here. They just won a huge major city in Iraq with virtually no bloodshed. They got the army to walk away, to drop their weapons and walk away. Maliki is in big trouble. He's supported by the Islamic Republic of Iran and by the United States. Gee, that makes strange bedfellows, doesn't it? But ISIS is on the march. They now control territory, contiguous territory from northern Syria all the way over to Iraq and to Mosul. So this is a huge crescent of territory that they control. This is trouble for us and for our friends.
Ralph Peters, who I'm sure you know well, Fox News strategic analyst and former military man himself, said that Obama's legacy will be a caliphate, along the lines of just how you described it, and possibly, if it extends into Baghdad, even further. I mean, is that something that is not beyond the realm of possibility?
God forbid. God forbid. But you would have to say Obama is doing just about everything necessary to make that happen. And that I think, is what is truly tragic. Ghazi was preventable. That's one of the things that I say in my new book, Dark Forces. The attack was preventable. The death of the ambassador the very night that it happened was preventable. We've had so many warnings, and yet the Obama White House has refused to heed them.
You mentioned Iran and strange bedfellows. There are reports, in fact, today that the Revolutionary Guard, the Islamic Republican leadership, that they're talking about being willing to work with the United States to thwart this this attack. Of course, for obvious, they have their own sectarian interests and strategic interests there. But can you see that alliance under this president of ours?
I can indeed, and that's something that's extremely troubling, that we would make common cause with the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that would, you know, that is what this president has been turning our alliances on their head. Instead of teaming up with Israel, instead of treating Israel as our best friend and our only true ally in the region, Obama has been dissing Israel from day one. Instead of helping our allies, such as Hosni Mubarak and others, to change in a democratic fashion, he dumps them. Even in Libya with Gaddafi, Gaddafi was not a wonderful person, but he had allied himself with the United States in the war on terror, and he was beating up on al-Qaeda. That was good, and he had gotten rid of his weapons of mass destruction. And what do we have today? Not only did we lose 4 people in Benghazi, but the country is in the hands of al-Qaeda.
Well, Kenneth, and I mean, this is something that, you know, you have to start asking this after a while. Not only why don't we have a military strategy, which it appears, but maybe we do have a military strategy or a strategic, you know, desire in the Middle East. As you pointed out, Libya, Syria. When we're fighting against Assad, we're fighting with the terrorists. Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, as you mentioned, Mubarak, who was the alternative of choice to Obama and the administration and still would be, the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, what is going on here?
Well, that's absolutely right. And I make that argument in some detail in Dark Forces, my book on Benghazi, that the administration has shifted strategically to support the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamist forces across the Middle East. Now, they try to draw the line. They try to make a distinction between the violent jihadis and the non-violent jihadis. Frankly, the difference is just a matter of timing and tactics. How soon do they kill you and how brutally do they murder you? But they're still going to set up the Islamic Caliphate.
Right. It's like the good Taliban and the bad Taliban. And by the way, we're going to have you back when for the book in a few weeks. I know that, so I'm looking forward to that. You wrote a piece that appeared in the New York Post, for one, and that's where I read it, how the Taliban got their hands on modern U.S. missiles. We know how the ISIS in Iraq is getting their hands on some of our equipment that we gave to the Iraqi army. The Iraqi army's deserting, and the terrorists are taking over the equipment. How did the Taliban, now again, you know, the good Taliban and the bad Taliban, remember that one about a year or two ago, but how did they get their hands on our modern U.S. missiles?
On Stinger missiles, nonetheless. I discovered as I was investigating the Benghazi attacks for my book that there had been a U.S. helicopter in July of 2012 that was hit by a Stinger missile. The missile luckily did not explode. It was fired by the Taliban. And as they went through the wreckage, they found a piece of the wreckage with the serial number, tracked it back, and they found that it came from a lot of Stinger missiles that had been signed out to the CIA, delivered to the Qataris, and the Qataris, Qatar, gave them to the guerrilla fighters, the Islamist fighters in Gaddafi's Libya, just at the very, very start of the civil war. Those missiles went missing, and that's what Benghazi is all about. It's about trying to get those missing missiles back, and they've wound up in the hands of every jihadi group around the world, including the Taliban.
And that's why probably, and I don't want to scoop your book, but that's probably one of the reasons why the video came up as a scenario, and you know, there's nothing here, and there's nothing to talk about, and people have been sworn to secrecy and threatened allegedly to shut up. Am I on the right track?
Oh, you certainly are. Don't look here. Let's not look here. Let's look over there.
Yeah, very, very frightening. All right, so just quickly, coming back to where we started, what do you see happening in the immediate future here? How far could ISIS go, and what will be the repercussions?
Well, I'm worried about Baghdad. I really am. And they have, don't forget, they've got the Sunni Triangle. And this is Fallujah, Ramadi, these areas that Americans still remember from those very bloody battles in 2004 and onwards. And we only beat them back thanks to the surge under President George W. Bush in 06 and 07. General Petraeus was the one at the head of that on the ground. Now, we're not in a position to have a surge again. We're not in a position to ally ourselves with Sunnis who reject al-Qaeda. So al-Qaeda, I believe, is poised to go back into Fallujah and go back into Ramadi. And remember, they are just on the outskirts of Baghdad.
Yeah. Kenneth, great to talk to you. Can't wait to see the book and talk more about it. And thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Kenneth Timmerman, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't get to talk about his run for Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. Maybe we'll do that next time, along with the book. Very. Look, we've talked about this at length today, yesterday. We're going to be talking about it well into next week, I would imagine, and beyond. And it's very, very serious. And I can't imagine being a vet or being a Gold Star family member of someone who died, gave their life in Iraq, and to see this happening, it's got to be devastating. Give Me 5 is next.
Imagine if you had a secret code for making money, a code buried deep within biblical texts.
A code that certain investment titans have quietly exploited to amass billions.
And what if this code could be used by you today to unlock vast amounts of wealth safely and ethically?
Investment expert and former pastor Sean Hyman says there is such a code. He calls it the Biblical Money Code. Sean credits this code for helping him turn his father's $40,000 retirement account into $396,000.
And today, you have the chance to tap into this life-changing biblical money code by visiting moneycode50.com.
That's moneycode, the number 50.com.
At moneycode50.com, you will find a free video that describes how you could use this biblical code in your own life to get out of debt and invest for profits.
That's moneycode50.com.
Judging from everything you hear, you think all cholesterol is bad, but that's not really true. You need a certain amount of cholesterol to maintain good health. The problem is that too much cholesterol in your blood contributes to a plaque, a fatty substance that narrows the coronary arteries that feed blood flow to your heart. Picture your coronary arteries as a 4-lane highway. If one lane becomes blocked, traffic still flows well. 2 lanes, no major problem. But if a 3rd lane becomes blocked, that spells trouble. It's the same way with your coronary arteries. And when plaque slows their blood flow to your heart, this can even cause a heart attack. The good news is that when it comes to cholesterol, lifestyle changes can pay off big time. Even a small reduction in plaque can be like opening up another highway lane. Suddenly, blood flow that was stalled can go forward again. Changing your lifestyle does not have to be hard. And in fact, here are 3 ways to help you start lowering your cholesterol. Snack on nuts. Nuts are probably one of the easiest and tastiest ways to lower cholesterol. Walnuts and almonds are among the best. Bulk up your diet with fiber. Choose whole fruits instead of a fruit juice, brown rice instead of white, and if you're eating a baked potato, be sure to leave the skin on. Choose fish. Fish contains cholesterol-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Hi, I'm Ben Affleck. The only thing better than playing a hero in the movies is being a hero in real life. Like the 50,000 veterans who returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with devastating injuries. They are true heroes, and they're why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America. For more than 60 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has made a promise to never leave a fallen comrade behind. They make sure veterans with spinal cord injuries get the quality medical care, rehabilitation, and housing they need when they come home. They stay with our fallen heroes for the long term, offering counseling, job training, and support to help them regain the freedom and independence they fought so hard for, all at no cost to them. Our veterans fought for us. Let's fight for them. To learn more about how you can help, visit pva.org. That's pva.org. We will never leave a fallen comrade behind.
So
What's it like when you're in office and you have to do all these political calculations to not be able to support something like gay marriage that you actually believe in? And you obviously feel very committed to human rights, and you obviously put gay rights as part of human rights, but in doing the calculus you decided you couldn't support it. Correct me if I'm reading it wrong.
Well, I think you're reading it very wrong.
And so it began, an NPR interview with Hillary Clinton and Terry Gross, the host of the show, about Hillary's changing position on gay marriage from when she was First Lady and opposed it to now when she favors it. And it went on from there.
So just to clarify, just one more question on this. Would you say your view evolved since the 90s, or that the American public evolved allowing you to state your real view?
I think I'm an American. I think we have all evolved, and it's been one of the fastest, most sweeping transformations.
No, I understand, but a lot of people already believed in it back in the 90s. A lot of people already supported gay marriage.
But yeah. to be fair, Terry, not that many. Yes, were there activists who were ahead of their time? Well, that was true in every human rights and civil rights movement. But the vast majority of Americans were just waking up to this issue. And
all right, so you would think that the NPR host would have left it alone, right? And said, okay, move on. No, to her credit, in my view, she went on with more. Watch.
I'm pretty sure you didn't answer my question about whether you evolved or it was the American public that changed.
Because I said I'm an American, so of course we all evolved, and I think that that's a fair.
So your opinion
that's
changed.
A fair conclusion.
So you're saying your opinion on gay marriage changed, as opposed to you just felt it was.
Somebody is always first, Terry. Somebody's always out front, and thank goodness they are. But that doesn't mean that those who join later in being publicly supportive or even privately accepting that there needs to be change are any less committed. You could not be having the sweep of marriage equality across our country if nobody changed their mind, and thank goodness so many of us have.
Okay, well, I give Terry Gross credit. I think Hillary's doing her best job at tap dancing, and the sweep across America, for the most part, is judges' decisions. It's not the voters of the states where people have voted. They voted overwhelmingly. Where legislators have passed bills, they've passed bills overwhelmingly upholding traditional marriage. These are judges, state by state by state, knocking this down. So let's make that clear and put that into the perspective it deserves, I believe. But Terry Gross wasn't finished. More.
So that's one for you changed your mind.
I have to say, I think you are being very persistent, but you are playing with my words and playing with what is such an important issue.
I'm just trying to clarify so I can understand.
No, I don't think you are trying to clarify. I think you're trying to say that, I used to be opposed and now I'm in favor and I did it for political reasons, and that's just flat wrong. So let me just state what I feel like you are implying and repudiate it. I have a strong record. I have a great commitment to this issue, and I am proud of what I've done and the progress we're making.
See, there goes the testiness. There's the testiness. I wonder if there'll be any repercussions for Terry Gross, by the way. And Terry Gross really wasn't finished.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify what I was saying. No, I was saying that you maybe really believed this all along, but, believed in gay marriage all along, but felt for political reasons America wasn't ready yet and you couldn't say it. That's what I was thinking.
No, that is not true.
Okay.
I did not grow up even imagining gay marriage, and I don't think you probably did either.
Okay, that could be a fair statement. By the way, that was the end. Terry Gross left it there. But again, so she said she did not always believe in gay marriage right along and then change for political reasons. She did not believe in it when she said she didn't favor it, and now she does. So there was a change. That's Hillary's position. And I think it's very good to get that on record. And very interesting. Very interesting. Sure, nobody grew up thinking there'd be gay marriage, but that doesn't mean that if you were a strong supporter of gay rights early on, as she says she's always been, then when some people were supporting it, it still doesn't really answer the question why she didn't. But hey, she gave her answer, and to her credit, and I love giving liberals credit when they deserve it, Terry Gross, kudos to Terry Gross for being very brave on the Steve Malzberg Show.